Am I the jerk, me, a 27-year-old man, for asking my girlfriend, who is 26, to stop involving her imaginary friend Tom in our relationship? So, when I started dating Sarah, I thought I hit the jackpot. Smart, funny, and gorgeous. We'd been together for about a year, and everything seemed pretty normal. But recently, I discovered that she has an imaginary friend named Tom. I had no idea about Tom when we got together. At first, I thought she was just joking around when she'd say things like, "Tom says you're funny," or "Tom thinks we should order pizza." I laughed it off, assuming Tom was a goofy inside joke. But now it's like Tom's some kind of relationship therapist that I never hired. We were having a serious talk the other night, and out of nowhere, she said, "Tom thinks you're overreacting." I just stared at her, thinking, oh, great. I'm getting double teamed by my girlfriend and her imaginary friend. So I finally asked her, can Tom maybe stay out of our conversations? Sarah looked crushed and told me that Tom has been her rock for years. Now she's barely talking to me, and it's like Tom's got beef with me too. Am I the jerk for asking her to keep Tom out of our relationship, or do I just need to make peace with my invisible rival? How about that for an original post? As with the first story in this one, there is an update to come, but goodness me. Somebody said in the comments down below, I'd actually be worried that Tom is a persistent delusion, like legitimately a mental health delusion. You're not the jerk, but I was immediately concerned about Tom being a mental health issue. Now, I kind of agree with this. I mean, look, your girlfriend's 26. That's definitely too old to have a genuine imaginary friend called Tom. Even if you carried something forward or with you from early ages when, people do have imaginary friends, I suppose, when they're younger. And even if you were doing it for a while just for like a bit of fun and to comfort yourself, to genuinely say to your partner, oh, Tom thinks you're overreacting here when you're having a serious debate about your relationship or, something's come up that you want to solve at the age of 26. Yeah, something might be going on here that is a little bit too sort of, well, it's more serious than, I guess, just having an imaginary friend. Opie replied to this and said, I've thought about that and it is definitely a concern. She seems fully aware that Tom isn't real, but he still plays a big role in her life. I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this without making her feel judged or unsupported. Maybe a conversation about it could help us both understand where it's coming from. Somebody else said, whatever happens, you're not the jerk. There is a possibility, again, that she's suffering from severe delusions and needs a psychiatrist like yesterday. It's not necessarily dangerous, but it's certainly unpredictable. The more likely case is that she's always used him as a manipulation tactic. Any disagreement in your relationship will end up with you being ganged up on. Tom will always cast the tie-breaking vote. Spoiler, he'll always side with her. And OP has said, yep, Tom's definitely the ultimate yes man. I swear, he never disagrees with her. It's like I'm in a relationship with a built-in tiebreaker that I can never win. Maybe I should get my own imaginary friend for backup. I wonder if she'd let Jerry cast a vote. Oh god, imagine if he did that. Just a constant 2-all, would be awful. So then the next day we got this update. Alright, buckle up because things just got even stranger. Really? I didn't think that was possible, but anyway. After reading all of your comments, seriously, you guys are killing me with the give Tom a girlfriend and charge him rent suggestions. I decided it was finally time to have the talk with Sarah about Tom. So, we're sitting there, and I gently bring up how Tom's presence in our relationship is, well, a bit much. She laughs at first, but then suddenly gets this serious look and says, okay, I guess it's time I told you the truth about Tom. Now, I'm thinking she's going to just say he's a silly thing she made up as a kid. I guess how I said it earlier, guys. But no, she takes a deep breath and tells me that Tom wasn't just an imaginary friend. He was her boyfriend back in high school. Yep, that's right. Apparently, Tom was her ideal boyfriend during her teenage years when, in her words, real boys were just disappointments. She used to imagine him as this super supportive, hilarious guy who'd always take her side and hype her up. And somehow, even after she started dating actual people, Tom just stuck around. Now I'm sitting there thinking, great, I'm in a love triangle with an imaginary high school boyfriend. She reassures me that it's not like that now, but I can't help but wonder if I'm competing with the ultimate perfect boyfriend who is literally too good to be true. So, I guess I'll try to make peace with my invisible rival, but just so you know, if I ever hear her whisper, thanks Tom, under her breath again, I might actually lose it. Okay, yeah, well, that somehow has weirded me out even more than the first post. I don't really know how to react to that. A lot to unpack there, guys. I think is the only real thing that I can say with confidence. I don't know what is going on there. A few things have just immediately come to my mind. Firstly, maybe she was very lonely in school and like Tom was her sort of like friend, boyfriend, someone to be with when other people weren't there with her. It seems weird that like a popular kid, or like, you know, not even a popular kid, a kid that had friends and dated people and had boyfriends would be like, oh, I hate all men, therefore I'm going to make up an imaginary boyfriend who is perfect. And then even later in life doesn't then realize how weird that is, or doesn't say, okay, yeah, that was a kind of a weird high school thing for me to do. Let me actually stop being weird now and not talk to a person that doesn't exist when I'm actually in a relationship with someone that I quite like. I mean, who knows how she feels about you really, but there you go. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Secondly, halfway through reading that, when she said, okay, I'm going to tell you the truth about Tom and it being a boyfriend back in school, I thought, maybe she did actually have a boyfriend called Tom back in school who passed away or tragically died, and then, you know, she's never really gotten over that, or that was her way to deal with the grief. But no, I think what I read is actually even weirder than that. I don't know. Yeah, I think it actually is weirder. And then thirdly, I'm not sure if I could be with somebody that did this sort of thing, because even if she was really nice and fun and cool or whatever, like every time you ever have a conversation with her now, you're just going to be thinking that she's going back and forth with Tom about it in her head or out loud. Like, again, if you hear, as you said at the end, if you hear her whispering to Tom, how is that going to make you feel? Now, I think the main thing is how you go forward from this is all about her reaction to this. If you say, just like, by the way, this is actually really weird what you're doing, and she says, okay, I get it, it is, and then you try and fix it somehow, or like, you know, come to some sort of agreement or get some therapy ideally to work out exactly what's going on here, then fine, and that would be great. But if not, I don't know, like, it's a bit too weird for me. Maybe if that's what you're into, if you're into your partner having an imaginary boyfriend, then go ahead. But you guys let me know in the comments down below. I don't think I could actually be in a serious relationship with somebody that actually confided in someone that didn't exist. It's probably where I'm going with this. Let me know if you agree with me down below. As always, very interested to hear your thoughts, especially on a story at... Jesus Christ, what the f***? I thought that was Tom. I don't know what noise that is. God, that really... Actually, can we get a replay on that jump scare? That actually scared me. Jesus. I broke up with a guy because his best friend is a female. So, I started seeing this new guy, Beck, a couple of weeks ago. I'd known him for a while before we began dating. He's really sweet and awesome, and the first 3 dates we went on went amazingly, and I really enjoyed being with him. Here's the problem. He has a very close friend, Kim, who seems to constantly be in the picture. During date number 4, he talked about her a lot. Like, a lot. She was somehow the topic of every conversation. And when I would try to change topics, he'd always find his way drifting back to a memory the two of them shared together. Granted, they grew up together and also dated at some point, so it would make sense that they would have a lot of memories and chemistry. He also began telling me the trip the two of them are planning to take, how they were taking her car, staying at her family's house, etc. I tried to ignore it at first and just let it go, because I too have a close friend of the opposite sex, but we never do anything like what they do. Our relationship is platonic, and the most we ever do is play Xbox together. I asked him to be my date to my brother's wedding, since I had a +1. This was after about 2 weeks of dating. And he declined, saying he'd already made plans on that day to go bowling with some friends. But after I spoke with a mutual friend of ours, I found out she was going to be there and that they had set it up together. I was thinking of it for a while, but the more I thought of it, the more it bugged me. So on our last day, I said I didn't want to pursue a relationship anymore. He was confused because I'd been acting normal up until this point. He asked me why, and I told him. I said, I'm sorry, but it makes me uncomfortable how close you are with Kim. You talk about her a lot, and she seems to be a big part of your life. And since we're not official, and I wouldn't try and tell you what to do, I'm just going to walk away because it makes me uncomfortable. He did not take that well. He said I was giving him an ultimatum and trying to force him to choose, and that I was being manipulative. I insisted that I just wasn't okay with it, and I didn't want to date someone who had that kind of relationship with someone who wasn't their girlfriend. We were not officially boyfriend and girlfriend, and I felt that I needed to break things off early before poop hit the fan. Well, I got an Uber home because I didn't want him to drive me. He was fuming. And later that evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Can you guess who it was? Yep, Kim. Kim texted me a paragraph about how Beck was crazy about me, and she thinks I'm wrong for judging her when I haven't even met her, and how I hurt him and was being manipulative. I responded saying I didn't judge her at all, just that the nature of their relationship didn't sit well with me, and I wanted to end things before they got complicated. She responded saying that I need to give him another chance, and that maybe me and her should meet so that I can see that she isn't a threat, and we could even be friends. I didn't respond to her, and shortly after, his mum and my mum texted me telling me I'm overreacting. It's amassed into a much bigger deal than I thought it would be. I don't want to be with him or even try again because of how dramatic I feel that everyone is being. Guys, it's worth mentioning at this point as well, sorry to interject, but OP hasn't said throughout all of this how old they are, at least not that I can see. So I don't know how weird it is that their parents are getting involved. Nonetheless, I think it's weird anyway that you have your mum and your exes, I suppose, or anyway, Beck's mum texting you saying, what are you doing? Very, very strange. Anyway, let's get back into it. I've repeatedly been accused of being insecure, among other things, and I literally cannot believe that it's blown up like this. I'm not an insecure person, I just got a really bad vibe from the situation, and I didn't want to be a part of it. Am I wrong for this? Should I give him another chance? Should I talk to this girl? And there we go. That is it for the original post. Let's jump into some comments. Somebody said, and actually I agree with the first 3 words here, trust your guts. You were an adult here, stated your case, and then everyone else presumed to tell you what you should do. F them. This is not even about Kim being the main heroine in Beck's life anymore. You were standing up for yourself and clearly stating that you were uncomfortable. It's not a trick or a game. I think you did everything right here, and you should block all of these people, except your mum, and let things cool off a bit. If it comes up again, you can say that if you felt it was off before, their bullying behaviour after you made your point further reinforced that this wasn't right for you. OP replied to this saying, I feel really bad because he was a super great guy and seemed to really like me too. I've had some tough luck with relationships and I really wanted to stay with him, but she bothered me too much. A part of me wants to try, but I know it's stupid and I'll just end up getting hurt. Somebody else said, to be honest, you did the right thing. You were honest and upfront and you walked away. If anything, they're being manipulative and trying to make you engage in a relationship that you find uncomfortable. Some people may think it's stupid or rude or wrong, but at the end of the day, dating is discriminatory and you have the right to reject anyone for any reason. It's a manipulative and honestly, and I'm not sure about this word here, but they've chosen to go with the R word attitude for someone to try to make you stay and recruit their friend to try and coerce or intimidate you. So, good for you for leaving. You aren't in the wrong. Hopefully they'll leave you alone. If you need someone to chat with or vent to, feel free to send a message. I'm happy to help if I can. OP replied to this saying, R word may be a tad overkill, but I see your point. It hurt to leave because I really, really liked him. I valued his friendship a lot, but as an SO, I knew he wouldn't last. It really annoyed me when he told her about it. Even during our conversation, she brought up things that I know I had only told him, so that leads me to believe that he'd been confiding in her about our relationship, which in a way I suppose is R-y, again R word E, because it makes me feel violated. I just can't believe it ended this way. And then finally somebody said this, you are not wrong. I'm not a jealous type, but when I see behaviors like blaming stuff on you, making you feel a certain way, I know that you've got to be careful there. Kim shouldn't have texted you. By doing that, she's giving away how she and Beck don't have any kind of healthy and normal boundaries. If you accept him and give him a chance, there's a high chance this is going to be the dynamic going forward. Every time you fight with Beck, Kim is going to intervene. Every time Beck doesn't like something about you, Kim is going to know. Every time you disagree on something with Beck, Kim is going to agree and they will let you know that. Every time anything happens between you and Beck, Kim is going to be there. I'd say a big no to this, and you are within your rights to be careful. Nobody wants drama at the start of a relationship, and the most important thing about this is the fact that he and she think that you are being manipulative when the only thing you're doing is just walking away from a relationship you already see is going to be problematic. If anything, you're being careful, and I'm sorry your mother can't see it. You are not in the wrong on this, Beck should be aware how dangerously close his friend is to him, and he has to acknowledge that that is going to be a problem with future dates. He doesn't seem to know this, and you're not going to make him understand that. If he really is crazy about you, then he should be able to listen to you instead of blaming all of this on you being insecure. I can tell you're not an insecure person, but this situation would make anyone insecure. You don't know him well yet. Of course, there's going to be something to be insecure about, especially if a friend who also is his ex is that close to him. That's not normal at all. There's something there they're both not accepting. I hope this helps. If I were you though, I would still try and meet Kim so I can be 100% sure. OP replied to this saying thank you. I really just felt so nervous about the whole thing. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it all and it was fine, but my gut told me otherwise. I only got a text by Kim. He actually never even texted me. Not until days later to ask if I'd found a new wedding date, which I have. And I told him, and he never responded. Yeah, I might meet with Kim, but in a public place, and I guess I'll just listen to what she has to say. I see no point in it though, so I'm undecided. Okay, very interesting start to this one, and I completely agree with the majority of what the comments are saying here, which is you have to trust your gut in this situation. The main point being, as somebody said in the comments down below there, you can't have problems coming about just 2 weeks into a relationship and sort of ignore them already. Like, if there are already issues that short into seeing somebody, I know you're not official, but you know, you've been dating for 2 weeks and you've had, what, 4 dates, and there's already this big red flag, and it is a big red flag in my opinion. I mean, you guys get your comments in down below. What do you think? I think you've got to trust your gut on that and just say, you know what, the fact that this has already come about just 4 dates in, yeah, that means there's probably going to be a lot more sort of hardship, I presume, down the line. I mean, it's safe to assume that if there's an issue already, it's only going to get worse, right? And yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, I've kind of had this situation a little bit before. It wasn't as drastic as this, and the girl's best friend wasn't a guy. It was just a guy that she was very close with. This is going back a little bit. But it still annoyed me. And I'm the same as you, OP, I think. Like, I'm not an insecure person, but as that commenter said, you know, if you are in this sort of circumstance, it would make anyone insecure. And I remember being a bit like, oh, this is annoying. Like, I didn't really care. It was just annoying knowing that this girl that I was with was still very good friends with one of her exes. And this is the thing. It's not ideal. Like, don't get me wrong, you're allowed to be friends with your ex. It's just not ideal for a new partner, is it? Let's be honest. When you're coming into this situation and you're meeting someone, I know you've not even met yet, but, you know, like, your best friend or their best friend is their ex, and they're confiding everything about their new relationship with you in them. Yeah, that's actually pretty disgusting, to be honest, and it's weird that they don't see the problem with that. But of course, this is r/best of Redditor updates, and just a day or so later, actually, after the original post, we got this. Firstly, wow, this post blew up on me more than my family did, so thank you guys. Now for the update. I did not respond to Kim, but I instead explained things to my mum, and she sided with me completely. She told me that Beck had called his mum, who is a former coach of mine, and told her that I yelled at him and tried to manipulate him because I was feeling insecure. He said that I broke up with him when he wouldn't do as I said, and she presumably contacted my mum afterwards. Again, I don't know how old these people are, but it doesn't really matter. If a girl breaks up with you and you call your mum saying, oh my god, this girl manipulated me, like lying by the way, I mean if it's serious, it's serious, but oh my god, this girl manipulated me and broke up with me just because she's insecure. Can you call her mum and tell her that she shouldn't do that? What a loser you are. As you will see from my post, OP continues, this was not true. I told my mum this and described the situation. And also, sorry, I can't just let your mum off like this, OP. Like, she was also saying, are you sure? Are you not made a mistake here? Why wouldn't she ask you first what's going on rather than jumping to conclusions? Anyway, let's carry on. She understood how I felt and why I left him, finally, and said that he sounded like an idiot, and she was happy I didn't bring him to my brother's party for his wedding. I blocked Kim's number and did my best to gently explain to his mum what really had happened, understanding the whole time she'd probably believe her son over me. But surprisingly, she didn't. She did say that he genuinely cared about me, and evidently I was a hot topic of conversation for a while before all of this, said he was crazy about me and was excited to see where our relationship would go. While she admitted her son was immature at times, he meant well. She was very nice about all of this, so I really appreciated that. I also just don't get, guys, and I know I'm interjecting a lot here, but this has been 4 dates. Why is everyone involved? Like, why are mums and families all involved in this? I don't understand. Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't have that sort of relationship with my parents, but I'm not telling them every time I go on a date, or like how an individual date has gone, or my progress, or like, oh, I'm going on a 4th date now. Do you want to call their mum? Like, it's just a bit weird. I don't know. Maybe they're family friends, but it's just strange. OP says, I was genuine and understanding. I said that while I understood, I couldn't just ignore the red flags presented to me. And since nothing has changed other than him trying to have other people convince me it's fine, well, then I made the right decision. She said she understood, and that was the end of it. With her, at least. Again, like, sorry. I know I'm interjecting a lot here, but imagine I went on 4 dates with a girl, then said to her afterwards, look, I'm sorry, I'm not sure about this, but, you know, you're great. I'm just got a few concerns, but, you know, it's been nice to meet you. Then her mum calls me and says, what are you doing? Why are you breaking up with my daughter? She's crazy about you. And then I have to explain myself to her? What? Okay, I promise I won't interject again. The worst with Kim did not end until I almost had to quit my DoorDash job. It's not with DoorDash, but for the sake of anonymity. I primarily deliver to elderly or families with children. But as I was unloading groceries out front of a house who had only ordered bread, cheese and bacon, I was a little confused, but mostly just horrified when I realized who it was. Kim had ordered from my line and gotten me to deliver to her house. She somehow found out I was working in her area. I didn't know it was her area, and I guess she did her best to get a hold of me. So, yeah, I met her. Not by choice, but I did. She ordered from her mother's name, I'm guessing, because it wasn't a Kim who had ordered. She immediately began questioning me about if I was still talking to Beck, if we were going to get back together, if I'd gotten over myself yet. However, her expression told me she already knew, but was just trying to annoy me in every way possible. Just in general, being an absolute female dog. I was polite at first until she asked me about getting over myself, to which I said, off of Reddit's advice actually, so it really is your guys' fault, if she'd gotten over the fact that her boyfriend got dumped. She didn't take that well, and didn't take the bag of bacon that I was trying to give her. Fine by me, because legally, if a customer declines a product you bring them, you refund them and keep whatever it is, since you usually can't return a food item. So I'm eating some crispy, yummy freedom bacon as I type. I left, and it's been pretty quiet. I have a new date to my brother's wedding party thing, and he is definitely just a friend, but Beck and Kim don't know that, so I'm going to be posting lots of pictures and dancing with him all night. We've both planned on this, by the way, and he knows everything, so it's even funnier that way. Beck has been stalking my social media, unliking and then liking posts. He even reported a picture of mine that had me and another male in it. He'll probably be like this for a little while longer and then drop everything, but it's kind of funny to watch. I'm moving on, and overall, I'm single and happy. Thank you for the advice, Reddit. Appreciate you guys. And one final comment from somebody who said, I just want to say, you should block Beck. The fact that he's telling lies and having other people confront you and low-key stalking you on social media is a red flag. That kind of stuff can easily inflate into something much bigger. Rejection is a big thing for potential stalkers. Take care of yourself, girl. You did the right thing. Oprah replied saying that I've unadded him on everything. I genuinely think if I go as far as blocking him, it would just blow up again. I don't want to give him any more ideas. Well, there we go, guys. I think the moral of this one is that you have to trust your gut, because you're obviously 100% right, and the comments were right as well. Like, there were red flags after 2 weeks. Therefore, as we've seen here, there were going to be so many more issues down the line. I mean, you didn't even know about this stuff. You didn't know the personality, I presume, that Beck had here, I guess, at least in a relationship. But it's clear that he would have been an awful person to be, you know, the girlfriend of or be in a relationship with. Like, the sort of stalkerish vibes, the fact that he's, like, sort of stalking you on social media, just being really, really weird, getting other people to talk to you and confront you. Yeah. If anything, I'd go as far to say that you definitely dodged a bullet with this one. And I repeat, trust your gut. Your gut is often right, if not always right. Sometimes it's hard to do, because sometimes you're like, it doesn't feel right, but in theory, this should work. Like, let's be logical. This should be fine. And this is something that I do quite a lot as a relatively logical person. I like to sort of work through things in my mind and come to a sort of like more logical conclusion rather than, oh, I feel this way, therefore I'll do that. But when it comes to something like a relationship, I think your gut has to be number one. You've got to listen to your gut and your heart, and that will almost all the time, I think, lead you down the right path. I just took a DNA test. It turns out I'm 23% related to my husband. This was originally posted on October the 8th, 2024. Hey everyone. I've known my whole life that I'm donor conceived. I grew up in New South Wales, and my parents were always open about it, so it was never some big secret. I didn't think much about it beyond that though, until a couple of years ago when my husband and I decided to take an ancestry DNA test. We thought it would be fun. Maybe I'd find some half-siblings, and he'd learn a bit more about his side of the family. Well, we got the results, and I matched with him, my husband, as a half-sibling. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake, or maybe I misunderstood something. But no, after looking into it, we realized his dad was also a donor, and no one ever told him. Now, here we are, married for years with 2 kids, and we're still trying to figure out how to process the fact that we are siblings. I don't even know how to explain how I feel. It's just overwhelming. I love him, of course, but this changes so much. We've already spoken to a genetic counselor, and we're trying to move forward, but it's like everything we thought we knew about our family has been flipped upside down. I just feel kind of lost. Has anyone else here gone through something like this? I'd really appreciate hearing from anyone who has dealt with something similar, or even just your thoughts. Okay, let's jump straight into the comments here. And guys, as always, if you've been in this situation, get your comments in on this episode. But somebody on Reddit said, I think you need some family counseling. First between you and your husband, and then later down the road when you inevitably tell your children. I'm not sure if you're able to take leave from work, but it would be a good idea to look into that, because this is absolutely something you need to process without work distraction. OP replied, I'm in therapy myself, but unfortunately my husband is not open to that right now. He's in a big denial phase and does not wish to talk about it. Now somebody else said, I'm so sorry. This was bound to happen somewhere in the world at some point, given the current unregulated fertility industry that puts profits above the rights and interests of the donor-conceived child. If you're up to it and think it would help, I have a few pieces of media to recommend. The Man with 1,000 Kids, a documentary on Netflix. Laura High, a content creator and advocate for DCP, donor-conceived people, on TikTok and Instagram. Multiple books have helped me, such as Inheritance by Dani Shapiro, Uprooted, and The Lost Family. I've not come across this particular scenario where children were conceived by accidental incest between DCP, but a lot of people have other traumas related to the industry and have explored that. I also understand if you don't want to research the situation. I didn't when I first learned I was DCP by surprise. I also understand if you don't want to research the situation. I didn't when I first learned I was DCP by surprise. Talking to someone is important though. You will be okay. Your kids will be okay. It's super weird and icky that this happened, but it's not your fault. OP replied, I've actually seen most of that media and read a couple of books from Australian DCP. I'm lucky to have been told early that I was donor conceived. It was never a huge factor in my life until now. Okay, let's jump straight into the update here. This was posted a couple of weeks later on October the 24th, 2024. And I hope this will give us some more context as to what happened next. But also, I'm kind of thinking to myself, medically, we haven't really explored that yet. Is this okay medically? I kind of want to know. OP says, thank you so much for all of the responses, support, and advice. I've taken some time to process, and I wanted to provide an update on where we are at. First, I've been in individual therapy and I'm working through everything. It's been incredibly helpful to have a space to just unravel my thoughts. My husband has also told me that he is open to couples therapy. That's a big step for us, and I'm hopeful it will help us navigate this together. To confirm some things, yes, my father-in-law is the donor, which makes him not only my husband's father, but also mine. It was a lot to take in. We're both really angry that my husband's dad never told him the truth, and at the moment, neither of us are talking to him. It's just too much. We've also discovered about 40 other siblings so far, all of whom live nearby. That was another layer of this experience we weren't prepared for. We haven't met them all yet, but knowing they're out there brings its own set of challenges and questions. As for our marriage, no, we're not divorcing. We love each other and are committed to working through this, but we haven't told our children yet. We plan on getting professional advice before we do. This isn't something we want to rush into without understanding the best way to approach it for their sake. I know many of you are part of the donor conceived community, and I just want to say that while I'm very aware and involved in spaces like We Are Donor Conceived, and I do follow creators like Laura High, Donna Dillon, The Queer Mama, Rachel, strangers like me, DC, Sunny, Evie Lucas, etc., I'm not interested in speaking to anyone publicly about our situation. I'm really proud of people like Victoria Hill for going public, but that is not what's best for my family right now. Thanks again for listening, for the advice, and for your understanding. We're taking this one day at a time. And that's all we have on this story right now. Somebody commented below, so very impressed with you both. This must be such hard work, and my heart goes out to you. As a donor, this is my greatest fear. I was not anonymous by choice. Back in the day, the fertility clinics capitalized on our naivety. Okay guys, so there we go. Crazy story to start off this episode. I do, however, just want to talk about someone that OP mentioned there before we move on and I give my overall thoughts. This is Victoria Hill, somebody who went public about their situation, which is very similar to OP. So let's have a quick read of this because it's also very, very interesting. And to be honest, yeah, as it says here, horrifying and also scary. So, the title of this article is, A DNA Test Turned Her Life Upside Down. She's Not Alone. Victoria Hill never quite understood how she could be so different from her father in looks and in temperament. She's a 39-year-old licensed clinical social worker from Connecticut, and she used to joke that perhaps she was the mailman's child. Her joke eventually became no laughing matter. Worried about a health issue and puzzled because neither of her parents had suffered any of the symptoms, Hill purchased a DNA testing kit a few years ago and sent her DNA to 23andMe. What should have been a routine quest to learn more about herself turned into a shocking revelation that she had many more siblings than just the brother she grew up with. The count now stands at 22. Some of them reached out to her and dropped more bombshells. Hill's biological father was not the man she grew up with, but a fertility doctor who'd been helping her mother conceive using donated sperm. That doctor, a sibling told her, had used his own sperm to inseminate her mother, allegedly without her consent. But the most devastating revelation came this summer, and this article was posted when? Back in, well, actually, yeah, February 14th, 2024. So I presume last summer, 2023. That is, I mean, so far this is absolutely shocking, by the way. Can't quite believe what I'm reading. Hill found out that one of her newly discovered siblings had been her high school boyfriend, one she says she easily could have married. I was traumatized by this, she said. Now I'm looking at pictures of people thinking, well, if he could be my sibling, anybody could be my sibling. Hill's story appears to represent one of the most extreme cases to date of fertility fraud, in which fertility doctors have misled their female patients and their families by secretly using their own sperm instead of that of a donor. It also illustrates how the huge groups of siblings, made possible in part by a lack of regulation, can lead to a worst case scenario coming to pass: accidental incest. And yeah, much like the story I've just read, this, to be honest, is somehow even worse. I mean, the fact that I don't know about the laws and the regulations and what constitutes assault. I mean, that surely does. But wow, just insane that this sort of stuff can go on. I think overall, and I'm really not well versed in this, so I don't want to give a kind of a sort of a set opinion based on facts. So it's going to be just more my sort of general opinion reading this without knowing too much about it. Surely there has to be more regulation here. Not just with the stuff that I've just read about Victoria Hill. That is obviously massively illegal and is just, yeah, people, like, that is assault. You should go to prison for that sort of stuff, obviously. But going back to the Reddit story, the original post there, I don't think, how can it possibly be right that somebody can donate their sperm, have loads of like donor children, but then they not know who their actual real parent biologically is? This person had 40 other, they said they discovered 40 other siblings so far, all of whom live nearby. Now, like, just working on sort of probability there, actually it's relatively likely, genuinely, that, I mean, not likely, but there's a very good chance that you could easily be in a relationship with somebody that therefore was or is one of your siblings. I mean, out of all those 40 people, if you guys know about the birthday probability thing, where if you have a group of 26 people, it's actually statistically probable that that at least one person or two people in that room, in that group, will share a birthday. If you have 40 people in a town, it's actually, quite probable that at least two of them will be in a relationship. How is that fair? And by the way, the maths does work out there. I know it sounds crazy, but if you're a maths person, you'll know this. How is that fair that people can just live their lives not knowing who their actual parent is? Surely something's got to be done there. I don't know. You guys get in the comments down below. Clearly, I don't know much about this, so let me know in whichever country you're commenting from or you live in what the rules are, because I'd love to know more about this, but it just seems so unfair that something like this we've seen with Victoria Hill, with OP here on Reddit, can happen so easily, and there's literally nothing you can do to stop it. Despite the fact that OP knew that her parents weren't biologically her parents, or sorry, her mum was, but her dad wasn't, right? Still, it's like she couldn't have done anything to prevent this. It's crazy, but yeah, as I said, comment down below. Now moving on to our second story of this episode. Someone opened a credit card in my name and ran up a $6,000 bill. My mum told me to just ignore it. It turns out she was the one who opened it. The original post for this one came on September the 6th, 2024. I'm looking for my next steps here, as I'm still in college and 3 hours away from home. Long story short, I applied for a job for my last year of school, which required a background check. When I found out I didn't get the job a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't too shocked, as I'm sure a lot of people apply for the spots. What did though shock me was when I got a letter on Tuesday from the employer which said information in my credit may have been used against me. It then listed a charged off account and multiple missed payments on an account. I've never been even a day late in my life for the one credit card I've had since I was 18. When I went to pull my credit, I saw the charged off account, which looks like it was last updated in June. Immediately, I figured my credit had been stolen and I called my mum. She said if I didn't open the account, just ignore it. And if I get sued, tell the judge an unknown person stole my identity. That didn't make any sense to me, as anyone could say that about anything whenever they get sued. When I told her I was probably going to talk to the cops about it, she said I wouldn't want those people in my life. My roommate said it sounded like my mum opened the account and doesn't want to get in trouble for it. I was able to speak with someone in the fraud department for the card, and they got me some information about it. Several cash advances from an ATM about a block from my mum's house, along with a couple of stores in my hometown. I told my mum all of that and I asked her to come clean. She refused and got mad at me for accusing her of stealing my identity. Finally, I told her I'm going to the police about it, and she blew a gasket, saying she needed the money and to mind my business. She said I can't call the police because they might revoke her probation, felony battery charges from last year, and she might end up doing time in county. I can't really sacrifice my future in this case, and while I love my mum, I'm devastated she'd do this to me. I think I should go to the cops, but I'm feeling some guilt about it. Oh my goodness me, you just have to go to the cops. I know she's your mum, but if you don't go to the cops and you don't say anything, these ramifications for you could be life-changing, and at this point you just have to be selfish and tell the truth. Your mum's put herself in this position, she has to deal with the consequences. I know she's your mum, but it's as simple as that. Anyway, let's move on to the update, which came at the start of October. I ended up filing a police report for identity theft. The day after I did it, I got a call from an investigator and we talked for about 20 minutes. We also talked a little bit about the job I applied for, which is federal, and he said their background investigator would definitely be pulling his report for the identity theft. Because of that, I decided to go through with the charges. Last week, the investigator called me back to confirm that I would be willing to testify against my mother, though he didn't think it would come to that and would likely end with a plea. I told him I would. Yesterday, my mum got arrested on her way home from work. She has an initial appearance this afternoon, but on her previous felony, it looks like a petition to revoke has been filed with a date later this month. I feel like she's going to snap, like she's never snapped before on me when she gets out, probably later today. I don't plan on answering the phone. Let's get straight into the next update. This one was posted 4 weeks later on October the 5th, 2024, and it's the final update that we have so far. My mother had her petition to revoke hearing yesterday, and from what I understand, the investigator from my identity theft case made a statement and her probation was revoked. She got remanded into county jail immediately. My sister was freaking out all day yesterday trying to get my mum's affairs in order since we have no idea when she'll get out. I haven't heard from the investigator since the call a few weeks ago, but I take it as a good sign he made a statement and my mum's probation was revoked. Another good thing is that the account came off of my credit report. My credit is back above 740 with no negative marks. I feel like I've at least gotten some justice since she's back in jail, even if it isn't specifically for identity theft. I'll make another update once I figure out what's happening with my case. And as I said, at the time of recording, guys, that is all we have. But yeah, I mean, at least you're on the right road here, and your mum, God, just so weird. Like, I actually give a little bit of kudos, well, actually quite a lot of kudos to your roommate OP who said that they thought it might be your mum in the first place. I don't think I ever would have got there in my mind. I would have thought, okay, your mum's giving you bad advice here, but it's not going to be her. But wow, the fact that they actually said, are you sure it actually could be your mum here? And sort of, yeah, gave you the idea to really go through with it, get some answers from your mum, and then file a police report. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Identity theft of your own child is just crazy. Like, I get it. Times are tough. But my goodness me, that does not justify theft. Especially not of your own children. Like, screwing them in future. I know it doesn't matter who you're stealing from. Like, it's all bad. But surely even an idiot would think, okay, I'm not going to steal from my own child and destroy their future. It's sad because you say in this, OP, that you love your mum, but let's be honest, after doing this and seeing this, there's no way that she loves you. Now moving on to our third and final story of this episode. My new employee ran a background check on me and asked me about what he found, plus 5-year update. This was originally posted back in August 2019. I started a new position recently and was promoted quickly to a management position. Great. I have a long supervisory background, looking forward to helping in a wider capacity. One of my direct reports is a very conscientious and ambitious young man named Scott, who I found pleasant to work with. Last week, during a normal conversation about a project, Scott brought up that he had done a background search on me, and then asked me about an arrest on my record, an insurance snafu that led to a driver's license snafu, and when I was pulled over for a normal traffic stop in a rather conservative county, I spent a night in lockup, which was both humiliating and illuminating. This is not immediately Googleable. I gave it a try myself after he brought it up, and some of the specificity of the details he used leads me to believe that he went to one of the publicly available background report sites and paid the nominal fee to obtain a detailed report. His question was framed as that he had been doing some research and wanted to clarify what happened in X state because it wasn't clear if it, the arrest, was in X or Y state. I lived in Y state more recently, but there's nothing easily found that links the two without paying for it. So in the moment, I answered truthfully that these items were from more than a decade ago and were the result of a particular set of circumstances. I then excused myself from the conversation and returned to my office. The longer I think about it, the more weirded out I am. Scott would like to advance, and I feel like a follow-up conversation is definitely warranted, but I'm struggling with an approach aside from, hey, you super violated a boundary for me, and that will go over like a ton of bricks if you do it with future managers. To be fair, this is an overtly aggressive office culture, and asking to explain your professional background in a fair amount of detail to co-workers and employees is par for the course. But while I understand having a background check run by the company during the hiring process, I'd like to keep my personal background personal. And while I'm not wild about discussing this embarrassing incident, my reaction was more of a, how and why did you obtain this information, than a deep, dark secret that I'm worried might come to light. How do I let go of my weirded out feeling, and how do I best address this in a follow-up conversation? Yeah, so weird is all I can say to that. Why has Scott done this? I have absolutely no idea, but the beauty of this post is that just a couple of weeks ago at the time of recording, October the 24th, 2024, over 5 years since the original post, we got this update. Okay, so OP originally posted that, actually not on Reddit, but to askamanager.org, which is actually where a lot of the posts on Reddit, the sort of best of Redditor update posts, originally come from. So he said, "Imagine my surprise when I opened your blog today to find you had re-released my letter. I felt an update was owed to everybody. I can't tell you how much I appreciated your advice on this peculiar situation." If you didn't know, you sort of submit your question to Ask a Manager and then you'll get advice from Alison Green, who runs it. Actually, originally Alison replied saying, "You're being way more chill about this than I would be. It's an incredible overstep to run a paid background check on your new manager." Yeah, I completely agree with that. She also says, "What's really weird here is that he thought he somehow had standing to A, make it clear to you that he did this, and B, ask you to clarify what he found." I mean, I agree here. I mean, I'm not a manager. Well, I suppose technically I might be. Who knows? But yes, in this situation, it's a very, very, very weird thing to happen. And I do think that OP sort of glossed over it a little bit rather than just saying, actually, what on earth are you doing? This has to be some form of disciplinary injustice or mistake here. I don't know. Anyway, let's go back to what OP was saying. "Thank you for the advice. It was a much needed grounding and reminder of what normal should look like. While I was not able to participate when the post was originally published, I did read every single comment. Your point about questionable judgment was spot on. Scott was indeed a younger employee and deeply convinced of the superiority of his own intellect and gender. He had a 5, 10, and 15-year life plan with ambitious goals. Unfortunately, this was coupled with no more sense than God gave a goose. His previous work experience in an unrelated field left him the impression that it was absolutely reasonable to deeply examine the people around him, but then verify his findings through research. As part of his 5-year plan, he was applying for many roles within the company in search of advancement, despite not having relevant experience nor demonstrating development in any key skill areas. As mentioned in my previous post, I was hired on in a line level position and then promoted to a management position within a couple of months. In that industry, career advancement is often tied to reassignment in diverse geographic locations, going where the work is, and arriving at a new location is accompanied by sharing bona fides with the team to build connections. Imagine you've worked for 20 years for the same company, but have moved 8 times and never worked in the same place or with the same team for more than 2 years in a row. I'd spent a great deal of time grabbing opportunities as they arose, living out of suitcases, and working far, far too much. I'd garnered some nice accolades in some faintly glamorous locales, but anyone who has done it knows that the luster is surface level only. Scott was intensely interested in my career experience and how I progressed in the field. Coupled with his desire for promotion and deeply flawed perceptions around reasonable follow-up, this led to the rather extraordinary situation I wrote in about. Armed with the knowledge that Scott was about as intuitive as a pile of bricks, I was planning a follow-up conversation the next time we worked together. He beat me to the punch when he asked me again about the information he had found as soon as I approached his desk, this time with a copy of my booking photo pulled up on his screen. I reacted much more decisively this time, telling him to close the browsing window immediately and pulling him into the office for a one-on-one conversation. Looking back, I think I used your phrasing almost verbatim around work boundaries and everyone deserving privacy. Scott was mostly confused by this response. In his view, it was perfectly reasonable to look for deeper information about almost anyone. His rationale behind asking me about what he'd found was he wanted to alert me this information was out there. I told him it was unacceptable behavior and demonstrated incredibly poor judgment that he'd dig this far into any colleague, much less his manager, then to bring it up multiple times. The company completed background checks for every employee. If they'd proceeded with the hire, one would assume that nothing relevant was in the report. I also let him know this was such an egregious situation, so we would be documenting both conversations and issuing a write-up, and this endangered his future with the company. After distance from the situation, I genuinely believed that Scott was an incredibly intelligent person, demonstrating that anyone can be an absolute idiot. So, did I document the situation in detail? Absolutely. Did I discuss this with HR and my boss? Absolutely. And she was ready to fire Scott. HR was flabbergasted and incredibly helpful in their handling of the situation. My documentation plan was supported with the agreement that Scott was on his final chance. Did Scott get promoted into another position? Not while I was there. After this incident, he did demonstrate an earnest desire to improve as a team member and make amends. We parted on decent terms. I actually wound up suggesting that he read Ask a Manager regularly. Unfortunately, my industry was one devastated by the pandemic. I wrote the letter in mid-2019. By March of 2020, almost my entire professional network was either unemployed or being overworked as skeleton staff. Driven by necessity, I grabbed a copy of Alison's book, How to Get a Job, and after giving some serious consideration about what I'd like out of my work moving forward, I retooled my resume and got to hunting. I've successfully transitioned to a new, very different industry and landed a position with a great company. It offers a much better work-life balance and more reasonable employee culture. While I do sometimes miss my old career, my situation is much improved and I've been quite happy to be settled down. I have no idea where Scott has landed, but I wish him well. I will not be Googling him. Okay, and there we go. That's probably one of the weirdest best of stories that I've read. Just so strange. What weird behavior. Now, because you guys have listened to all of this episode and you've watched this long, I'm going to give you a little insight into my own life, which I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway as a sort of reward, if you can call it that, for your time. Now, what I will say is this. I am not against a cheeky little background check myself. You know, call it a stalk, call it whatever you want. But it's not lasting like, you know, a long time, and I'm not paying money for it. It's just a couple of minutes looking to see if someone is who they say they are or what they've done in their life. I know I'm not the only person that does this. And to be more specific, I'm talking about girls on dating apps that I'm trying to see if they might be potential catfishes or not before I go on a date with them. I have been, well, I do go on LinkedIn, for example, and see if I can get a little bit more information about a certain individual before I go on a date with them, just to see if it's worth my time, I'll be honest, and to see if they look the same in their work photos as they do on Hinge or other dating apps, you know, because why not? It takes 2 minutes. Maybe it's immoral, maybe it's unethical. You let me know in the comments down below. But I know I'm not the only one who does that. And I've been, let's just say, let down in the past by people who don't look how they look on their profile in real life. So it's a little step that I take. Should I have said that? Maybe not. However, it's the truth. Coming back to the story now, this is a different level. I would never ever pay for anything like that, first of all. Secondly, to do it to your manager, your new manager, is so, like, I actually kind of rate how stupid it is. Like the arrogance to say, by the way, boss, don't know if you know this, but I paid for something online and it said you got arrested a long time ago for something that really doesn't matter at all. Why? What happened there, man? Just so you know, if other people pay to get a background check on you, they'll also be able to find out this information. There you go. Hope you're okay with that. That's another level. Obviously. Am I the jerk for teasing my friend about not recognizing my kid, thus ruining her marriage and an unrelated engagement party? This was originally posted on October the 18th, 2024. So, me and my wife have a 5-year-old son. Our group of friends is mostly couples with kids, as we are nearing our 40s, and so a lot of our meetings with friends now include meeting up as entire families, kids included. This can sometimes mean a lot of adults and a lot of kids. One person in this group, Emma, used to be my roommate in college. She was married and has her own kids, and we hang out with her and her husband sometimes in a group setting, but rarely on our own. Emma also tends to run late, often. This is all relevant to the story. As our son is an only child, we sometimes worry that he wouldn't really learn to share or get along with other kids. To prevent this, and while I love spending time with him, I would sometimes preemptively nudge him to engage with other kids when we're in public playgrounds or at the beach or the pool. To that end, when I buy him a water pistol or an RC car or the like, I'd often just buy 2 or 3. I'd get to the playground and play with him, and when another kid would show interest in the toys, I'd just go, "Oh, you want to play with us?" and hand him the remotes or the pistol or the whatever, thus getting the kids to play. This works great quite often, and I have a generally good relationship with the parents at our neighbourhood. This is also relevant. One day, like a year back, me and my wife were planning on taking our kid to the pool. I pack my large bag of pool toys. Emma texts me. Her husband is away that day and she's looking for something to do with the kids. I talk to my wife and tell Emma we're going to our local pool and she's welcome to join us, but we're planning on heading there early so she can just join us whenever. We arrive at the pool pretty early and get a really good spot poolside, right by the shallows. I grab some water pistols and me and my kid start playing world domination. I'm trying to take over the world and I can only be stopped through the power of water pistols. It's a whole thing. The kid loves it. Soon, another kid is there. It's a kid from my son's kindergarten class. He's there with his mum. He is, of course, welcome to join us. We know the family, the mum and my wife are pretty friendly and our kids play together often. So my wife says she wants to go for a swim and the kid's mum says she wants to join her and asks me if I'm okay watching the kids. I say sure, since by this point the kids are blasting each other with water pistols and I'm just chilling poolside, occasionally having to call out, "Oh no, my plans for world domination, ruined," because sometimes that's just what parenting is. Then Emma and her kids show up. She is really happy to see me and I give out toys to her kids. All is going well. Then my son's friend runs up and asks for some other toy and I go, "Sure thing," and hand it to him. Emma goes, "Oh my god, so cute, he looks just like you." I laugh and say, "Okay, cool, but this isn't my kid." Now, in her defense, the kid does look kinda like me, making this kinda hilarious. When my wife and the kid's mum comes back, I tell them the story. They also find it hilarious. We all have a friendly chuckle, but think little of it. Fast forward to a few months ago. Now, I haven't seen Emma in a while. We're at a friends group gathering, and it was a good time all around. When we're about to call it a day, me and Emma are at the entrance. She's grabbing her stuff, and I'm on my second trek from the car. Kids' toys, kids' clothes, dirty dishes, Tupperware with leftovers I want, etc. And I call out to Emma's husband, "Hey, can you call my wife and kid over? Just make sure it's actually my kid and not some random kid who kinda looks like me." I think it's a hilarious callback. He seems confused and kinda angry. He asks what the heck I'm talking about. Why would he call a random kid? I'm also confused, so I tell him the pool story. He doesn't laugh. Emma doesn't laugh either. The entire thing now feels kinda awkward. I awkwardly say goodbye, go and grab my wife and kid myself, and we leave. Later that day, I text Emma to ask if everything is alright. I get no reply. I text again a few days later, no reply. I get the distinct sense that I effed up. But also, if she doesn't want to talk to me, I'm not going to force the issue. I leave well enough alone. At worst, I thought she was mad at a joke I made, which was apparently in poor taste. Boy howdy did I underestimate the fallout of this joke. A few days ago, I arrive at a friend's place and she's there. This is an engagement party, so no kids. I wasn't supposed to come, but I decided to last minute, and my wife was at home with our kid. Emma sees me and is livid. She wasn't expecting to come. She actually only did because she thought I wouldn't be here. She does, however, take the opportunity to tear me a new one. She calls me out in front of everyone. Because of my joke, originally said with air quotes, her husband was furious. From what she said and what I gathered from mutual friends afterwards, she previously commented on someone else's kid looking like someone who wasn't his father. Except that whole thing led to family drama in Emma's husband's family, because in that case, that dude was cheating, and that was his kid, and a whole bunch of people were really hurt in the aftermath. Emma's husband was furious, because he apparently thought she would know better than to comment on kids looking like people again. This sent them down a spiral, especially because the husband apparently thought she told me that other family story, and that I was mocking him for his family drama, and he thought the story I told was just covering for her when I realised I effed up. This was not the case. Goodness me, this has gone pretty far from just a silly little joke, my word. I had no idea that whole thing happened. Still, he didn't believe Emma when she told him. So, they are now separated. She calls me a jerk and says that I ruined her marriage. Now, I'm not a confrontational person. I apologise profusely. I say I didn't know, and if she didn't want me telling the story, then she should have said something. She tells me that I'm making excuses. This is now a scene. I apologise profusely again, and I leave quickly after telling the couple a quick congratulations. I'm later told this was anything anyone could talk about at the party, and now the engaged couple are mad at me too. Emma is even more mad because now everyone knows her drama. I am unfriended and unfollowed on everything. Some friends think I couldn't have known better, and the joke was pretty benign. But other friends say it was in really poor taste to throw her under the bus and that I am totally the jerk. Emma's best friend, who I also know from college, thinks I did know about the thing with her husband, and now I'm just covering my own butt to get away with being cruel. It's been a few days and some of my friends will no longer talk to me. Others think she is wrong to blame me and that marriage was doomed anyway. Still, I feel really guilty about making the joke, and I obviously wouldn't have made it had I known the trouble it would cause. I like Emma, and I didn't want to hurt her. I also liked her husband. I'd like to say that maybe he was wrong to let the marriage implode like that because of a stupid joke, but at the same time I don't exactly know his family drama and their history, nor the specifics of his relationship with Emma, so I can't really say he's wrong or overreacting. The entire thing just kinda sucks. My wife sorta got my back though. She thinks the joke was hilarious and actually thinks that me breaking up their marriage makes it even funnier because what the heck? She also loves crazy Reddit stories, so she sent me to post this. So at least I've got that going for me, which is nice. So I guess, am I the jerk? Okay, so before I give my thoughts on this one and we get into the first update, there are actually two pretty long updates to this one, guys, so lock in. This gets great. Let's have a look at some comments first of all. So somebody said, nah, it sounds like she's being blamed for someone else's infidelity and her whole in-law family is gaslighting her. Actually, I kind of feel bad for her. And OP replied, I hadn't actually thought of that. That entire thing must be really hard on her. I'll try talking to her again in a few days and try to clear the air because she is a friend and she's clearly going through stuff. Like, I'm not super thrilled about how she called me out at the party, but at the same time, I don't know, I've known her for over 15 years. Someone else asked for info. I'm curious if you reached out to the husband to try and explain, especially considering how everyone in your group is supposed to be friends. And if you did reach out to him, what did he say? OP replied, I did not, and I probably will not since he and I were never really close like that. I liked him well enough, but he wasn't really the friendliest guy, at least with me. Somebody else said, you're definitely not the jerk here. Emma's husband wanted an out and you gave him one. It wasn't your fault and you shouldn't have even apologized. There was nothing wrong with your joke. Honestly though, your friend group sounds like it thrives on drama and you're probably better off not being friends with the people who took Emma's side. And finally, somebody said, you're not the jerk at all. And I love how she freaks out on you and publicly airs her dirty laundry, then blames you for everyone learning about the situation that she blurted out. That is a very good point. Okay, so a lot going on here already, and I will say that the first update comes just one day later, but it's packed full of new information and drama. So yeah, more's going to be revealed then. However, just off the bat, I don't know, it's just so much going on here. The first thing that comes to my mind is this woman's husband is clearly just looking for an out, I think. Like, you don't split up with somebody just because of one off-the-cuff joke that somebody else made. It's just not a thing. So, yeah, there's definitely more going on here, and I feel like this was just a matter of time. But it is kind of funny, to be honest, how one joke can just cause a divorce. I'm also not really inclined to agree with the commenter who said that they actually might feel bad for Emma. Yeah, it's clear to me that her husband is looking for a way out and is probably jumping on something, but I don't think she's helped herself in this situation by blurting it out at an engagement party and then saying, like the last commenter said, oh, what do you mean? Everyone knows about it now. I'm a laughingstock. Yeah, because you told everyone. Like, you made it all about you. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into the first update that comes just one day later. I'm now updating you because the last few hours have been a lot. It turns out that when I wrote my post, I left out one critical piece of context. I thought I was a regular person living a normal life. It turns out that I am Chaz, a side character on the worst Gossip Girl episode ever written. So, after posting yesterday, reading replies and thinking it over, I decided to reach out to Emma one final time. Some of you thought I shouldn't, and that these were, in fact, not my monkeys. But others maybe realised that Emma was probably in a trashy situation with her husband and his family and was actively being gaslit. Now, of note here, while as I mentioned we're not as close as we used to be very close. She helped me pick out a spot and let me borrow her car for my first date with who later became my wife. She was a significant part of my support system during some very rough times in my life. Despite everything, I still felt like I cared about her and wanted to work things out. This is no longer the case. See, from my perspective, I thought we were good friends. Then, when she met her husband, we naturally drifted apart, and then this thing happened out of nowhere. This was not what it looked like from her perspective. How do I know? Well, buckle up, because this is absolutely unhinged. So, last night before going to bed, I texted her a long, thoughtful message. I explained that I do apologise for the part I played in ruining her marriage, and I understand that she's going through a tough time. I understand if she wants nothing more to do with me, but if and when she feels she wants to talk it out, she's welcome to reach out, and I leave the ball in her court. I show this to my wife, and she is practically giddy. She tells me there's no way this doesn't blow up in my face, and I should have just cut my losses, like many of you guys said. Emma shows up at my house at around 7 a.m. unannounced. I ask, what the flip? She says she really needs to talk to me. I call my wife to the door and explain this. She sends me off with this woman because she understands this can only go badly, and apparently she's here for it, and it's my own fault at this point. So, as I said, from my perspective, we were friends and we drifted apart. From her perspective, for the last 15 years, she's been playing some weird game of 4D chess. Or 2 different games of 4D chess? Apparently, she had feelings for me back in college, and she was trying to nice girl her way into a relationship with me by being there for me when my dad died and when I was struggling with being single. She always gave everything because she just assumed I would, at some point, come around. You'd think that me getting married or her getting married would change that, and it did, just badly. Apparently her husband knew about her feelings, which is why he always kept me at a distance. We never drifted apart. He explicitly asked her not to meet with me anymore outside of large social gatherings. That day at the pool? Yeah, that was her sticking it to him because he was away cheating on her or something, and he didn't like her hanging around me scantily clad. It wasn't just that he was upset at the joke. He was upset because apparently I was having an affair with his wife and rubbing it in his face. Makes no sense? I know. It gets worse. That thing at the wedding, well, at least she didn't plan that. I told our friends getting engaged that I wasn't coming. She asked and verified this. She wasn't expecting to see me, and they told her I wouldn't be there. But once I showed up, she decided to exploit it. She intended to have a huge scene with me so that she could tell her estranged husband and friends that I ambushed her because she broke off our affair. Our affair? Apparently we had an affair. Oh, what affair is that, you ask? Well, I did too. Apparently the story some people got was that she and I were having an affair and it ended, and then I was just stalking her. Her husband left her because he found out. So people more inclined to believe her just thought that was what happened and wanted nothing to do with me anymore. So why did her husband actually leave? Well, some of you called it. According to her, he was cheating on her a bunch and was overall not a nice person. She never actually cheated on him, but used me to pretend that she did without my knowledge. So after the joke at the gathering, which may have indeed been in poor taste, they had a huge fight and he left the house. As for the thing with his family, from what I gather it was some dude sleeping with his cousin's wife or something like that. So anyway, she tells me all this insanity and tops it off with that my message really moved her and we can still be friends. The reason she rushed to show up at 7 a.m? My message made her realise I am actually the only one who really cares about her and everyone else in her life is fake and doesn't really care. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but now this sounds like some really manipulative stuff to me. And I'm thinking back to a lot of our previous interactions, and a lot of them also seem like that to me now as well. I am not a confrontational person. I was willing to accept that I effed up. Maybe some of you were right and the joke was in poor taste, and I'm a huge jerk for making it because I thought that if he knew the story, he'd get the call back, and if he didn't, I'd tell him a funny story about his wife. I accept all that criticism. But this? F no. I was done. I tell her I'm done with her trash. She can get back to her husband, leave her husband, keep any friends she wants because I am done. I can forgive a lot, but she'd been basically not communicating with me for over 15 years. I was telling her everything about my life and my feelings, and I was absolutely appalled by just how much of a one-way street this turned out to be. I feel like I didn't ever really know her. Maybe I played a role in that too. Maybe I was self-centered or selfish and didn't consider her emotions or her signs. I don't know. And you know what? At this point, I don't think it matters. She lied to me so much. She lied to so many people so much. I just don't care anymore. I don't think there's anything left to this friendship to fix. And the worst part, I just gave you this huge update, and I genuinely don't know how much of it's true. Maybe she was completely honest with me. but maybe she lied about everything and we're still playing 4D chess. Who knows? I certainly don't. And that, more than anything, is why this friendship is over. Because even if I could forgive everything, I can never really trust her. So, that's that. There will probably not be any more updates because this was meant to be a light-hearted post and it turned out into a total cluster flip, and I'm just so tired and so sad. I'm sorry if this wasn't as readable or as coherent as my previous post. This just happened and I'm just exhausted. Sorry, I'm going to interject here because I'm in complete flow state and I've not made an error in so long reading this because it's so good and so easy to read. This is very readable, OP. Let's get back into it. My wife has been very supportive, though I assume at some point I'm due some well-earned I told you so's. She knows there wasn't an affair and there was certainly no stalking, and most of my friends probably know that too. I may try reaching out to some others because, well, I don't know, maybe they were told even worse things about me, but I'm just done with this. And now I'm going to spend what's left of this weekend with my family and try to put this hell behind me. Thank you all for reading and for your advice. Well guys, 3 days later, we actually did get one final update. Before that, I just have to just jump into some comments from people on that first update. Somebody said, wow, what a roller coaster. It sounds like you made the right call cutting ties. The situation was beyond your control and you can't be responsible for someone else's complex web of lies and manipulation. Focus on your own well-being and enjoy the support of your wife and family. And somebody else said, so she's been telling people you had an affair? Run for the hills. Open a group chat with the friends. Tell the truth, and whoever doesn't believe you, drop them. If she takes a narrative, it would be your word against hers. Okay, well, reading that certainly makes me feel a little bit better about what I said after the first post, where I said that, you know, maybe she is being gaslit here a little bit, but ultimately she is sort of entertaining this, or she has brought a lot of this on herself. And now, after reading that, yeah, I'm going to double down on what I've just said there. 15 years of manipulation. It's actually insane. Like, I do, on the one hand, genuinely actually now do feel a little bit bad for her because, like, maybe she was really in love with you this entire time and just didn't find a way of saying it, or just couldn't really deal with the fact that she was still in love with you despite getting married and trying to move on. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving her way too much credit here and she's just a really weird person. I think that's probably more likely. Like, what is she actually doing? Telling her husband that she's having an affair with you and that you are now her stalker is so mad. Wow. But as I said, there is one final update that we got 3 days later. After reading that one, I genuinely have no expectations or even any sort of like comprehension or even some sort of guess as to what might happen in this one. So let's just go into it with open arms and see if we make it out the other side. Okay guys, some of you thought things were going to get pretty crazy. Now before I give this update, I should probably clarify some things that were brought up in the comments. Firstly, when I said we were roommates, I didn't mean we shared a literal room. We lived off campus in an apartment with another friend. We all had our own room. Second, to clarify, and more on this later, the only person she told about having an affair with me long term was her husband, now ex. Everyone else heard about it, but only after the engagement party outburst. Thirdly, my house already has cameras and security. My dogs and her never really got along, so I don't think she's going to be trying anything anyhow. I suppose they were the first to know what's up. Okay, on to the actual update. While unfortunately I do not have the conversation with her recorded, I do have a text from a later time where she confirms making it up. I didn't block her because my wife said it might be better to let her incriminate herself further and have it documented, so I just let her do it for a while. And once I got her to admit she made the affair up, I stopped responding. Got increasingly angry at texts, but nothing yesterday, so hopefully that's done with. She actually said some pretty nasty stuff about my wife, and I considered responding, but my wife laughed it off and said that's just how sore losers are, and I shouldn't engage any further, so I didn't. I also have screenshots from her husband where she talks about the affair that she is supposedly having with me. How do I have those, you ask? Well, realizing just how much she lied about to me, it occurred to me that almost everything I know about her husband, let's call him Dave, comes, even indirectly, from her. And by this point, I suspect she might not be the most honest conveyor of events. So I took a risk and I texted him to meet up. We had a long talk, and Again, he might be lying, of course, but from what he said, he actually never cheated on her, though she often accused him of that. The innocent mistake she made with his family? Yeah, she felt his cousin's wife was being a little bit too familiar with Dave and started actively spreading the rumor the kid was his maliciously. Oh my goodness me, it's been her all along. This understandably caused a huge backlash and was one of the many things which caused Dave to want to leave. The interaction with me in that context was therefore just the final straw. Thinking of that now, the mistake she made with me might not have been so innocent, and I think she might have tried to start something else if my wife or the kid's mum were less good-natured about the whole thing. So anyway, Dave is fighting for full custody, so that can get really ugly. I don't know the legal nuance of divorce, but I assume he's in for a poop storm. He really likes a lot of our mutual friends and has been a part of the group for quite a while, so he doesn't really want to have to leave or anything, and to be fair, having talked to him versus Emma, I tend to agree. We talked for a long time, and he seems to be a pretty good guy, though I have been wrong before. And I offered some support because, well, having read my post, you can probably assume what divorcing Emma is like. He worries about it, and I understand him completely. So I offered support best I could, and will probably continue to do so. So as for my friends, I sort of took your guys' advice, but not really. I didn't do a group text, but I did give a short summary of what happened and some choice screenshots to most of my friends. This started some conversation, and a lot of tea was spilled, and some realizations were made regarding the fact that a lot of drama that plagued our group over the years can actually be attributed to misunderstandings attributed to Emma. More tea ensued. My wife, by the way, is having a blast. So, yeah, some of my friends were gobsmacked since they didn't really hear Emma's story, but understood what a cluster flip this was. Others were understanding. Emma's best friend blocked me, so she's got nothing, but I suspect she'd remain unswayed regardless, and I suppose that's good. Most people I talked to felt we should probably cut contact from Emma, and that would be that. Her house in our neighborhood is owned by Dave, and she's already moved out, so we're not supposed to be seeing too much of her day to day. I don't really want to demonize her. I don't think she was evilly cackling as she tried to ruin lives. I think she's a very troubled person, and I still hope she finds peace and friends and relationships that would help her through whatever the frick she is going through, and mostly a good therapist. But this is no longer my circus, and she is not my monkey, and so I hope she does all that way the F away from me. As for my wife, here things get a little tricky. See, my wife confessed that she and Dave were having an affair all this time, and so we are getting a divorce. I'm kidding about the last part, of course. God, could you imagine? No, my wife is awesome and remained awesome. Since the situation seems to be mostly resolved, she is now allowed to tease me about it, which she has been. A lot. I might take a while to live this down, but otherwise we are doing well, and for the most part things seem to have settled down with my friends. Though I may want to reevaluate some of my relationships with some of the ones who were more inclined to believe some pretty bad stuff about me. And yeah, that is about it. I'm sorry there wasn't really the crazy showdown some of you may have expected. I do think this thing is behind us now, and thank you all for reading and for your advice. And there we go. I'm not entirely sure what crazy showdown we might have got there, but I think there was more than enough drama in that story to satisfy everyone in the world. There's no doubt about it. That was one of the most fun stories I've read in a long time. Just some crazy characters. Maybe my favorite one in all of this is your wife, OP. Just living for it every second. Like just knowing, of course, the whole time that you are completely innocent throughout all of this, and you know, just having a good time with it. Like supporting you, of course, but now that it's all over, just teasing you about it, living for the drama, saying you shouldn't get involved, but I reckon secretly hoping you kind of do, and just seeing what happens and just laughing at your demise, if anything, and just, yeah, lapping it up. It's good to see. I feel like OP's wife is kind of like one of us, sort of watching this from the outside, enjoying the drama, seeing what happens, and being completely gobsmacked by the result. Definitely one of the craziest stories that I've read in a while, with some unbelievable twists and turns. I started thinking that Emma's husband was the problem. Goodness me, how wrong I was. He seems like a nice guy, Dave. just crazy scenes. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on all of this stuff. And yeah, subscribe for more like this. My husband abruptly adopted a Burmese python. It terrifies me and I want to rehome it. Plus 9-year new update. So the original post was posted to r/relationships on May the 7th, 2015. Maybe this would be more appropriate on r/snakes, but this problem is less about the python itself and more about my relationship with my husband. So personally, I don't think so. 6 months ago, our corn snake unexpectedly died. My husband, who is 26, and I, a 24-year-old woman, were both very upset. He was a cute little guy and still very young. My husband has owned several small reptiles during his lifetime, and he told me he was thinking of trying a milk snake this time instead of a corn or a garter. Instead, 2 months after our corn died, he came home with a baby Burmese python. Apparently, it's always been his dream to own a Burmese. Not only am I annoyed that he got something like that without consulting me, on the upside, where we live they are legal, but I had several reservations that have only grown since we've owned it. I have general anxiety disorder, and that thing triggers my anxiety like no other. When I was doing research about Burmese pythons, I kept reading stories about them killing pets, children, and even their owners. So now I'm freaked out and have barely slept for 4 months. This is made worse by the fact that my husband has no experience with large snakes, and the larger the python grows, the more it shows. And also by us having a cat. The other snakes we've had, our corn snake and my husband's old garter snake, posed no threats. But now I constantly worry that the python is going to get out and eat her. I've taken to locking the cat in our bedroom at night, which interferes with our sleep since she meows and scratches at the door, and I constantly worry about her when she's home alone. I'll reiterate, this thing is freaking huge. He's already 6 feet long. Also, I'm home more than my husband, so I have to feed it and change its substrates often. I hate doing both so much, especially now that he's graduated to eating rabbits and pigs. I honestly think that since my husband bought him without consulting me, that caring for it should be his sole job, but I'm not going to let it go hungry or live in its own waste out of pride. Goodness me, he's eating rabbits and pigs. That is a crazy pet. Wow. I honestly don't think we'll be able to give this snake the best quality of life, which I think is essential for all pets. He's getting too big for the tank he's in, which is his 3rd since we've gotten him, and I don't think we have the room in our house for the enclosure my husband wants to build him. His food is very expensive and eating into our savings, but it's what he needs, so we can't downgrade. The python doesn't deserve to live in a tiny space and eat inadequate food because my husband wanted one as a kid. At the same time, it's a good possibility it could eat us out of house and home. Also, I don't want kids while we own a python, and these things can live up to 20 years. I don't want to never have children, which I've dreamed of, because of a python. Yeah, that is one thing I will say with our corn snake Marty. He lived pretty long. I mean, I think he was like 15 or 16 finally when he passed away, which is a long time. You know, most animals don't really live that long, and I don't actually think we expect them to live as long as he did. Because of all these reasons, OP says, but especially the ones about our cat and its quality of life, I think we should rehome the python, preferably to a wildlife sanctuary or something. I've gently brought all of this up to my husband, how much mental anguish it causes me, how worried I am for our cat, how the snake is unsustainable, and all he's done is tell me to get over it, accuse me of not caring about his happiness, and tell me that I am being prejudiced against animals that aren't cute and cuddly. None of that is true, not even the last accusation. I liked his smaller snakes a lot. So, how can I communicate productively with my husband about this issue? He already loves this snake, and I think that's getting in the way of him seeing reason. Now, before we get on to the first update, first of all, some people were asking in the comments down below on the original post about OP's rebuttals to her arguments. We've only really seen just the last bit there where he's saying, okay, that's fine, but do you not care about my happiness? Which personally I do think is a bit of a joke. Also, him saying that you only like cute or typical pets, when surely he knows that you've enjoyed having previous snakes, or the corn snake, for example, in your life, or the garter snake, is a very weird thing to say. But yeah, OP has addressed her husband's rebuttals to her arguments. So as far as worrying about the python getting out and killing the cat / future kids / us, he said, I won't let it get out. You need to go on new anxiety medication. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me start that again. I won't let it get out. He says you need to go on new anxiety medication. Jesus, it's just not what you want to hear from your husband at all. Never mind the fact that both the corn and the garter escaped from their tanks, OP adds as well. Oh wow. He also said, well, what are you going to do? Let it starve just because you don't like it? That's cruel. Okay, but OP literally said that she wants to rehome it and actually not let it starve, and also is worried that the family, her and her husband, can't keep up with it and give it the life it deserves. The opposite of cruel. He says that we have room for the enclosure and that we'll find money to keep buying it food. He says I'm ridiculous to not want babies while we have a python, and says everything will be fine. That would concern me as well. I didn't realize that Burmese pythons, I probably should have realized this, but eat pigs. What? OP concludes, I don't find any of his rebuttals particularly compelling because they're just, no, that won't happen, to a concern of mine, without explaining why it won't happen. Okay, let's get into the first update then. This was posted on May the 14th of the same year, 2015, so a week after the original. First of all, I have to say thank you for the outpouring of support I got, especially from the reptile enthusiasts who happened to be browsing this sub. You guys are awesome. Now, I just want to say this at the beginning, so what everyone wants to hear is heard. The snake is gone and my cat is alright. Here is how it happened. Thursday night, while I was replying to people in my post, several people suggested talking to my husband's friend, who owns Burmese pythons, is an experienced reptile keeper, and could be a huge help. I was too blinded by the situation and my own anxiety to even think of that. I messaged him on Facebook Thursday night and told him the situation. He was shocked at just how bad things were, but apparently he tried to warn my husband that owning small snakes and then jumping to a berm is like thinking owning house cats makes you qualified to own a tiger. But my husband didn't listen. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Owning a corn snake, I'm going to be honest, pretty easy, and well, actually one of the easiest pets you can possibly have, to be like, you can leave it for 2, even 3 weeks sometimes in the summer. It's going to be completely fine. Obviously you need to change the water, but yeah, having a snake that you have to feed a pig and rabbits, it sounds like a lot more effort. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, definitely more of a commitment. Anyway, this guy has been busy going to reptile shows. He breeds venomous cobras. He's kind of cool. So he only saw the snake in person once when we just got it, and was immediately disturbed when I told him about the overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handed a lot. What? Sorry, overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handled alone. Okay, that is new information I think that we didn't have. He told me he'd come over the next day, Friday, and give my husband a real talking to, as well as do anything he could to help us rehome it. I decided I couldn't live another day in the house like that, and neither could my cat. So Friday morning, I moved out to my mother's while my husband was at work. It was a bit sneaky, but I knew that if I tried to leave while he was home, he'd try and convince me to stay. I called him on his lunch break though, and told him that I had left until the snake was gone. He was very upset, but started accusing me of being so petty as to let a snake wreck our marriage. I had nothing productive to say to that, so I told him I'd talk to him later. Well, my husband's friend was so angry at what he saw of the snake that when he got to the house, when my husband was home from work, he gave him the tongue lashing of his life, and told him in plain terms that now that he saw how woefully inadequate we were as big snake keepers, there was no way he was going to let the snake stay at our house. Being yelled at really affected him. When my husband drove over to my mother's to talk to me, he looked like a kicked puppy. He broke down and told me that he loved me, that he was sorry for the heck he'd put me through, and that it had taken having reason yelled to him by an expert for him to really see what was going on, and that he now understood that the snake could no longer live with us. I know that at that point, the sorrow he felt was due to having his snake taken away though, not of real understanding. Not yet. So don't worry, he's not completely off the hook. It was cathartic to hear though. His friend contacted a herpetology society that he works with regularly, and then a member of that society whose speciality is rehabilitating snakes that irresponsible pet owners get and then mistreat on his ranch. So the snake went yesterday to this guy's ranch where he'll be fed the right food and go on a diet apparently, and live in a space that's big enough for him. Well, that is good to hear. My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and he acknowledged that his fervent desire to fulfill his childhood dream made him careless and selfish, that he wasn't trying to be malicious towards me, but he just wanted the snake so badly that he'd do and say anything to keep it. It still seems like, though, that he hasn't learned, which I'm not expecting this early, but it's still a mite disappointing. He talked yesterday about getting a ball python, and I put my foot down. I don't think we should get another snake for a long time. Wow, okay, yeah. OP is clearly right here. This guy hasn't learned. I will jump in though and say that it is probably quite tough. Like, you can tell that this guy, it's been his dream all his life to have a sizable pet snake. You know, a lot of people out there do have corn snakes or small reptiles, but you can tell this has been his dream. It's just whether or not he can come to terms with the fact that this is really affecting his life and, obviously, his marriage and his wife's life to such a detriment that he needs to just leave it alone. I'm not sure if he's going to get to that stage. On Sunday, I sat him down and asked him to tell me the truth of how he got the python, because walking into a pet shop for a milk snake and just finding a Burmese was sounding more and more implausible the more I thought about it. Oh wow. He admitted that he arranged to get one with a breeder online while he was telling me he wanted a little snake, meaning he was actively lying to me. This breeder is also a state away, meaning my husband participated in something illegal when he met up with him to get it, since transporting Burmese pythons across state lines is against the Lacey Act. I'm very angry about this. I'm upset about his lies, and I'm upset that he blew me off for months. He admitted he lied just because he knew I'd say no, which shows such an immaturity that almost disgusts me. I'm upset that he broke the law. I'm upset that he only listened to what I told him when it came from someone else. Apparently, he's been having a quarter-life crisis that he didn't tell me about because he feels that he should have accomplished more with his life at 26. He never went to college. I feel sympathy for him with that, but that's no excuse to treat me badly. I moved back home with Kitty last night, but our marriage is in severe jeopardy right now due to the lying and the lack of respect that my husband has shown me. But I made vows to stick with him, and I don't take those lightly. We're going to be getting counselling, which I hope will make him really see what was wrong with what he did, rather than a knee-jerk response to being in trouble, so to speak, and will strengthen us. If not, well, I'll have to consider my options. P.S. People were saying in the other post that we were actually feeding the snake guinea pigs and that I was lying to make the snake look bad. Well, I suppose I was fudging the truth, but not that way. We were feeding it dead piglets. My husband's cousin owns a working ranch with several pigs, and my husband was buying them from him for a pretty penny. I didn't want to say because I thought people would focus on the snake eating baby animals and start calling for its blood instead of offering me advice. That has made things a whole lot worse in my opinion. Goodness me. Okay, now let's get on to the second update. This is the last one from 2015. This is a few weeks later, June the 13th. Hi, I'm back. The snake is still gone, but I guess I'm coming back out of desperation. People messaged me wanting to know how I was doing. Anyway, on the surface, therapy has been going well. My husband has been doing everything right. He's been contrite, open-minded, and treats me like a princess at all times. I can tell at home that he's making a conscious effort to listen to my opinions and thoughts and incorporate our therapist's suggestions into our lives. I feel like the hugest female dog saying this, but I don't think it's enough. Over these past weeks, I've had to come to terms with the fact that something about how I view my husband has fundamentally changed. And finally, after extensive soul searching a few days ago, I realized what it was. I have no respect for his intelligence anymore after all of this. That is very, very important to me. And now it's just gone, and I don't know how it can come back without him getting a personality overhaul. It's killed my physical attraction to him. I normally have a high libido, and prior to all of this, we made love 4 to 5 times a week. But now, since all this went down, we've been intimate 3 times. To be fair, while the snake was here, we were down to 2 to 3 times a week, but it was still more frequent than this. Despite all the changes he's making, he's still himself, and I don't think I can like who I know him to be now. He's still his goofy, absent-minded self who needs me to balance the checkbook and pack his lunch. I can't respect that anymore. I don't want to be his mum or a naggy sitcom wife. I used to love doing these things for him. Throughout our relationship, I've taken care of him, patched him up, and helped him solve his problems. I always saw it as the ultimate expression of love. Now, I'm just sick of it. He can tell something's still wrong. He's irritated about my lack of forgiveness and lack of a sex drive lately when he's objectively doing all the right things. But his lack of understanding towards my apprehension makes my feelings even more pronounced. I realized the other day that I love him dearly as a friend. I've known him since I was 9 years old, but no longer as a husband. That devastates me. I can't believe I'm thinking divorce after less than a year of marriage. I feel like such a failure. I haven't broached these feelings in therapy yet because they crystallized only a few days ago. But I don't know how to start because I know saying them will mean my marriage will be over. I've talked to my mum and friends about this and they all tell me to wait longer, to stick it out because I made vows. But I feel like I found out something fundamental about my husband that I wish I never have, and that nothing can be the same now. Wow. That is pretty damning stuff. I also probably would be inclined to say, Not for the reasons of the vows, by the way. I mean, like, you know, marriage is great and all, but I don't think you should stay with someone just because you said some vows. But I would be inclined to say give it some time, just because this is still relatively new, how you're feeling, and who knows how your feelings can change over a long period of time. However, let's just get into the update. This is the one that intrigued me in the first place. This was posted just 2 weeks ago at the time of recording, so 9 years later, October 14th, 2024. This is a 9-year update. I don't know if we've ever seen the like. This might be the longest or the greatest difference in terms of time between a post and an update. But yeah, here we go. 9 years later. So 10 years ago almost, I posted on r/relationships about being scared of my ex-husband's giant snake. Here is an update. One of my friends sent me this. Now that was the post posted on r/best of Redditor updates, which, if you didn't know, is where I get these sort of stories, because people come together and they post the best stories from Reddit that have had updates, however long apart they might be. This one is definitely one of the longest I've seen. My friend said to me, "I think you wrote these posts." And reading them, yeah, I did. A lot of people seem to be wondering what happened to me, so I logged into this account for the first time in 10 years to give one final update about what happened. I'm posting here because I'm not quite sure where to post. I feel like r/relationships isn't really a thing anymore. No, it definitely is. Basically, my ex-husband brought home a Burmese python after telling me he wanted a milk snake. I was really scared of it and anxious, but he was dismissive of my worries. I ended up getting the snake shipped off to a reptile ranch, but it absolutely shook my trust in my ex, because I've just realized, ex-husband, wow, I glossed over that, because he was lying to me. It also made me realize that he relied on me to do everything for him, like a second mother, and that I hated that. I really tried to work through the feelings I posted in the second update, but after 3 months, we separated. Okay, respect. It's totally okay if you judge me for this, because I judge myself. After being separated for half a year, we ended up having sex. My grandma had just died. I was devastated. He came to the funeral to support me, and because he'd known her forever and loved her too. We went home together after the family lunch, and we ended up having comfort sex. Neither of us wanted kids at that point, but my IUD had slipped into my cervix at some point before this, and I ended up getting pregnant. Both of us were unsure about introducing a kid into our relationship, but decided to get back together and make another effort. I'd always wanted to be a mum and didn't want to abort. We found out pretty early into the pregnancy that it was actually a molar pregnancy, meaning that instead of a normal fetus, I was pregnant with a tumour. I had the mole removed, but I was one of those lucky people who develops cancer from their molar pregnancy. Oh my goodness. Luckily, the cancer was caught when I was only at stage 2 and responded really well to chemotherapy. I've been cancer-free since 2016. However, my ex's behaviour when I was extremely sick from chemo, we had stayed together after losing the pregnancy, caused me to put my foot down and want to divorce. He wouldn't or couldn't pick up the slack around the house, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I felt like I couldn't depend on him for anything, not even when I had cancer. Literally a week after I was told I was cancer-free, I told him I was moving out and wanted a divorce. I lived with my mum for a year while our divorce was being finalised, and a bit after it, and then decided to get a job in a new city because I needed a new beginning. I also decided to fulfill a dream of mine that I've been mulling over for a while, and I went back to college to get my BSN in 2017. I graduated in 2019 because I was in an accelerated program for people who already have another degree, and I now work as a neonatal nurse. The job can be really wearing and difficult, but it's so amazing watching tiny and sick babies grow and thrive and eventually leave. I feel like I found my calling. I also met a guy in my class when I went back to school. We were just friends for 2 years because I didn't feel ready to date, and then in 2019 we started dating. That guy is now my husband. We got married in 2022. My current husband is the most amazing man and partner I could have ever asked for. I can fully lean on him and him on me. And I don't have to ask him to please pick his socks up off the floor. He even does most of the cooking because I hate cooking. Due to my cancer treatment, I went into premature ovarian failure. So we're going to start IVF in the new year with eggs I had frozen before my chemo began. We also want to adopt and or foster at some point, and I've been looking into that as well. I know for sure that my husband is going to be a wonderful support for me and an amazing father. At the time of my divorce, I had no confidence that my ex would be either of those things. I don't want to just bash my ex though. He's doing much better since we got divorced. A month after I left for good, he actually attempted to unalive himself. and was put on a 72-hour hold at the hospital. He took their advice to follow up with a psychiatrist seriously and was diagnosed with ADHD. It explains so much about how he was when we were together. A little later on, he was also diagnosed with autism. I don't speak to my ex because it's too painful for both of us, but my mum is still close to his mum and has given me some updates. He's taking medication that's really helped his ADHD and was able to go to trade school. He has a much better job now and has been in a steady relationship. I wish him all of the best. I look back on my old posts and all I can do is shake my head. I was putting up with so much that I would never put up with now. I also thought I was so grown up because I was 24 and married, but clearly I still had maturing to do. Part of me feels sad for my ex too, because he was struggling for so long and I was writing him off as unhelpful. However, even though he had a medical reason for being inconsiderate, I still had to do what's best for me, and I was at my breaking point. Considering his success, I think we're better off without each other. Oh, and I still talk to my ex's friend, the Cobra breeder, from time to time. Bucatini, the Burmese python, is still doing great in his new home. Okay, so there we go. That is the end of that one. What a name for a snake, by the way. I mean, I was a big fan of Marty as a name because, and if you know the reason for this, by the way, because I have said it once on the channel, but I mean, I've been making videos on this channel for now almost 6 years. So if you do know it before I say, mad respect. But it's actually named after the zebra from Madagascar. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Oh, very reasonable and very logical name. Obviously not, but I was about 7 years old when we got him. Anyway, let's carry on and talk about the story there a little bit. Yeah, I want to say one thing actually about this ADHD chat. I can understand why you're now saying, okay, we can put it down, put some of his actions down to a medical condition. However, I don't think you're allowed to, I don't think like having ADHD means that you suddenly cannot like be nice or understand like someone else's point of view, especially your own partner. Maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. Okay. Actually, you know what? I've forgotten the fact that he's diagnosed with autism as well. Okay. I'll probably rescind that statement, but I'm just thinking like if it was just ADHD, it doesn't mean you can't just, I know it's harder to do certain things that to others seem easier, but yeah, it wouldn't just necessarily mean that you then cannot understand your partner at all, or like the whole stuff with the, you know, from the original post of your ex-husband not understanding the impact having that Burmese python was having on you. I would say that's not ADHD, but yes, autism makes sense. I think the main thing is what you said there at the end. It does sound like, well, for you, 100%, you're having a much better life. And it sounds like he's got the medication and the help that he needs to have a more successful and fulfilling life as well. It's probably good for him. So, yeah, overall, good story, I suppose. And, yeah, you might look back at yourself and think, oh, how immature I was, what mistakes I made back then being with that person. But who knows? Maybe everything happens for a reason. If you weren't with them, if you didn't break up, if you didn't get divorced, you never know. You might not have met the person you're with now who you seem to really love. And yeah, hopefully you're going to have an amazing life with that man. A week before the wedding and someone's trying to steal my fiance. I am a 24-year-old woman and I'm set to get married to my high school sweetheart in a little over a week from now. I've liked him since elementary school, and honestly, just thinking about how I actually ended up with him and I'm about to walk down the aisle with him is crazy to me. We're getting married at this absolutely gorgeous castle venue in the PNW, and it's peak fall weather right now, where it's just cold enough and the leaves are changing colours and it looks like a Gilmore Girls episode outside. I have this beautiful wedding dress that actually brought me and my mum to tears when I tried it on. All my beloved family and friends are in town to help prep for the big day, and again, I'm marrying the guy I've wanted to be with since I was a kid. Everything is as perfect can be for me. But I can't be happy and enjoy this next week because I just heard the most insane thing from my husband-to-be. A girl we went to school with, elementary through high school, reached out to my fiance and congratulated him on his engagement. No big deal, we've been getting messages like those a lot. She and I were never that close, but we were pretty good acquaintances through mutual friends. I moved schools and towns my sophomore year and lost contact with a lot of people, unfortunately. Anyways, she congratulated my fiance and then sent a few, "How are you doing? We haven't talked in a while" type messages. She and my fiance were never close either, but he was, and still is, a really nice and popular guy, so everyone likes to talk with him. They exchanged a few messages, just catching up on the past couple of years, and they got to talking about the wedding. She then drops a message that said she was disappointed about not getting invited to the wedding, despite how close we all were in school. Again, we were never close in school. Yeah, we saw each other in the playgrounds and at lunches in later years, but we never hung out in the same group. My fiancé kind of brushed it off and apologised and told her that we had very limited seating, which is true. She then doesn't respond for a few hours and he thinks that's the end of everything. But last night, he got this huge paragraph from her basically saying she's been in love with him for years and how she wanted to confess to him in high school, but I got in the way. We were both completely flabbergasted. Like jaws dropped on the floor, room so quiet you could hear us blink, kind of shocked. The rest of the message is her trying to convince him to meet up with her to see each other again so they can have a talk about the past. I immediately tell my fiancé to block her and I whip up my phone to send her a piece of my mind. But he stops me and says I shouldn't be so hasty. I'm offended at this point because what does he mean by that? So I ask and he says he's obviously not going to meet with her, but he can't just leave her hanging like that because it's rude. I ask him if he ever had anything going on with her and he instantly says no and that he never showed her any interest other than his usual platonic nature. I was so shocked and upset, I went up to bed and just laid there processing. A while later, my fiancé came in and said he sent a message back saying he was flattered but loved me and could not meet with her out of respect for his soon-to-be marriage. You want to know what her response was? She said that he deserved to be with someone better and that I bullied her all throughout high school because I knew she wanted him. I didn't even go to the same school as her for most of high school. How could I bully her from a town over? At that point, I was so fed up that I just got ready for bed and went to sleep. I woke up this morning and my fiancé said he never texted back after what she said. Since then, she sent a flurry of messages saying she just wanted him to know who he was really marrying and that she was always honest with him. I would like to be clear here and say that I'm not upset with my fiancé at all. I believe him when he says that he never flirted with her or led her on. This girl, whatever she's going through, is trying to drive a wedge through us, and that's making me irate. I have never once done anything to her that could be considered bullying. She also never told me about how she had feelings for my fiancé. He and I started dating a couple of months after I moved schools. She had plenty of time to talk with him and tell him how she felt with me out of the way. I understand the heartache she must be going through if she has really been in love with my fiancé all this time, but that doesn't give her the right to just spring this on him so close to the wedding day and expect him to just run off with her. I want to so badly send her a message and ask her why she's telling lies about me, but I also just want to move on and forget this ever happened. Okay, and there we go for that story. Now, just immediately what comes to my mind is what a terribly troubled individual. I just actually feel sorry for this person that their life is in such a bad place that they're now feeling the need to try and ruin someone else's. Like, what are you actually doing? Surely this woman knows how selfish and potentially damaging she is being by doing what she's doing. Like, yeah, obviously nothing's going to come of this and your husband's not an idiot, but even making you like have these horrible thoughts and being more stressed, etc. It's probably very tough for your husband as well. Who wants that in the week leading up to their wedding? Now, on top of that, you also now probably, I'm sorry to say it, this was posted just a couple of days ago. So in a way, I kind of hope that this woman doesn't see this video before her wedding, but I would now be concerned that there's a decent chance this other woman finds out where the wedding is. That won't be that hard. Comes along, like just storms in, and then she seems like the sort of person to say, I object, and just ruin the entire day. I mean, maybe that's a little bit far-fetched for me, but I genuinely could see somebody like that doing something like that. Like, on the one hand, I do feel sorry for her because it does sound like she's having some sort of episode, and there's no way her life can be going very well when she's doing stuff like this. But on the other hand, because she seemingly has no real idea of how damaging her actions can be and are being, I just think that you need to be super careful and just, yeah, block, tell nobody to contact with her at all, and just, yeah, make sure if to the greatest possibility that you can that she has no bearing and no ability to go to your wedding at all. Also, I do have to say one more thing actually, just about your fiance, OP. And I know I'm slightly rambling here, but you guys are probably thinking the same as me here. Like, if this is me in this situation, and I'm the guy, I'm not entertaining this for 1 second. I'm like instantly blocking. This is the week leading up to my wedding with the woman I'm about to marry, and we've been, like, not even high school sweethearts. Before that, I've known her my whole life. This is like the dream, right? I'm not entertaining this conversation. I'm not replying to this woman just to be nice, and I definitely wouldn't say, oh, you can't just not reply. Like, you can just block her. Just do not even begin to entertain the conversation. You saw what happened after OP's husband-to-be sent a few messages. It got worse and worse and worse, and then you got that long paragraph, and who knows? I think now the situation has escalated more than it would have done if you just blocked her in the first place. That's definitely what I would have done. It's weird. Like, yes, what the girl did is terrible, but it's a bit of a red flag that your fiance didn't just outright block her. That was the obvious thing to do. Why keep communication open? Okay, now moving on to our next story. This one involves some more wedding drama. Bride assaulted at her own wedding. I have been with my partner for over a decade, but we haven't gotten around to getting married yet. His younger brother got engaged to a really sweet Austrian woman, and they decided to get married. It was great news as she is really nice and balances him out well. The wedding was beautiful, on family property, and came with a bit of drama, as weddings tend to do. The mother of the groom was in a tizzy about her assigned seat during the ceremony. She threw a huge fit the night before the wedding. The couple DIY'd almost everything, and at some points in the night, the bride was running around doing chores. The DJs were pretty awful, playing old middle school dance hits, like Low by Flo Rida to kick it off, which grandma was not going to dance to, and most of the time, nobody was on the dance floor. At one point, I was kind of wondering where people had gone off to. Anyway, afterwards, my partner and I started to think maybe we should elope, as the wedding seemed like a lot of stress to the couple. Little did I know. About a month later, we get a call from his brother. He tells us the reason some people were missing that night. Apparently, one of the guests groped the bride on the dance floor. He started giving lots of details, and I was in shock. The guy grabbed the bride, and she knocked his hand away. But then he did it again. She told him to get lost. She wanted to focus on her day, but others who saw or heard about it took it upon themselves to kick him out. Now, as if that's not drama enough, the person was a friend of the father of the groom. The parents gave a lot of money towards the wedding and thus brought their own guests. Sorry, I have to stop right there. That's not how that works. If the parents give a lot of money towards the wedding, they give a lot of money towards the wedding. They don't therefore bring their own guests. That is crazy. Anyway, let's carry on. The father even pushed for more of his own friends, saying that they would get a bigger gift from those people. Oh, God. The couple said they only wanted people they'd met before at the wedding. But even then, the parents really pushed. The guy gave me heebie-jeebies and I stayed away from him. It turns out the family knows he's been fired before for inappropriate behavior. The next day, the father-in-law drove to see the groper, claiming he did not know the situation yet. The groper's wife said that the groper owed the bride an apology, so that was the first hint to the father-in-law that something had happened. Father-in-law drove home, then told the bride she should just get over it, still claiming he didn't know what the situation she should get over even was. The groom, who thankfully was completely supportive of his new wife, confronted his dad and told him exactly what happened. He'd written down everything, who had seen it happen, what happened, when, etc. I can't quite believe I'm reading this, to be honest. What a disgusting thing to happen at your wedding. And then, your father-in-law, your brand new father-in-law is saying, I'll just get over it, didn't even happen anyway. Like, what have we even got to apologise for? Insane. Oh, here we go. The father-in-law then made the bride retell the whole thing, then revealed that his fourth wife was on the line, who is best friends with the wife of the groper. The fourth wife basically ignored the bride and groom after that. This hurt the bride, who had a good relationship with her, and even with the wife of the groper. She wanted to reach out to the groper's wife to patch things up. The groper himself sent a half-buttered apology via text. I heard I might have done something to upset you. I'm sorry if I upset anyone. Complete BS. The father-in-law apparently had a pre-planned vacation to Italy with the groper 2 weeks after the wedding. Despite the fact that his new daughter-in-law was SA'd on the day of her wedding, he went anyway. The father-in-law said he heard there was an apology, though it was not accepted by the bride or groom, so therefore he decided to go on the trip. He also said that only now he is learning that the groper has other history, which is definitely not true, as my partner knew through my father-in-law that the groper lost his license, etc., in the past. I was appalled at all of this. I could see a mirror image of the exact same situation happening to me and my partner had we gotten married 5 years ago, before tons of therapy, learning about boundaries, learning how to deal with narcissistic parents. The groom and bride were pretty easy on the father-in-law, telling him they didn't care about his friendship with the groper, but to me, it's actually appalling that he went on the vacation anyway. The groper wasn't held accountable in any way. If he doesn't want to apologise, next up would be the father-in-law at least apologising for his part in inviting the groper. My partner called father-in-law to tell him his opinion of everything, and that he was not happy that he went on the vacation. Then, the father-in-law said, well, it's not like there was a R word at the wedding. Oh my days. Might be one of the worst things I've ever read or heard on Reddit. So, that is where we're at right now, with the father-in-law saying he didn't even have a good time on the trip anyway. And for some reason, a lot of the focus being on fourth wife's friendship with the groper's wife, instead of on the groper, or the reason that the groper was even there, the father-in-law. Or any focus on who was actually harmed in all of this, the bride who was assaulted on her own wedding night. Disgusting behaviour. Well, if you thought the first story had drama, how about that? Just actually disgraceful scenes. Can't quite believe what I've just read there, as I just said. Yes, if there's one thing you've learned from all of this, it's that you personally need to not have a wedding where they are anywhere near it. Any involvement from the father-in-law, any of his mates at all. Just no. Just get gone, elope, and then have your own party at home without them. Just do something that you can control and that they don't feel they have control over because they've put money into it. Or some of their friends are going to give big gifts. And then SA the wife. It's like, it's actually crazy. It's just insane that, like, the father of the groom is not even apologizing to the groom or his new daughter-in-law at all and saying, yeah, well, it's fine, mate. Like, no one got hard. Relax, bro. It's chill. Also, we gave you a lot of money. Like, we paid for a lot of this stuff, so we're allowed to do this. I don't know. I genuinely feel like it's probably a weird thing to say, but you, OP, and your partner have probably, yeah, as you said, to be fair yourself, gotten away with it a little bit. Like, the fact that you didn't have a wedding 5 years ago and your partner's brother had a wedding first means that you've probably not been groped. You get what I'm saying here, guys? Like, this sort of thing could easily have happened before at any other wedding, probably has done, probably will in future. I mean, it's not a good thing that you know, but at least you do know. However, for this new bride, I just feel like it's awful. You have to go to the police. You have to. And I get it. Why she was just like, okay, I'm leaving you alone. Get out. I don't like that this has happened, obviously, but this is my wedding night. I'm not going to ruin it. But now, after the event, you have to go to the police. At least, like, get some sort of legal action started. Actually, there's precedent before, right? This guy's already lost his license, been fired from a job or two. Something serious could happen to him if you press charges. Like, it has to be done at this point. It really has to. If anything, it's now irresponsible to not press charges, because if you don't, who knows? It might happen to somebody else very soon. My husband died, and I have to pretend that he was a great man who loved me. This was originally posted on August the 11th, 2024. My husband passed away 3 months ago, and I was relieved of that. He abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying that he would take care of me. I could never buy anything again without asking his permission. I couldn't even buy a cream without asking his permission, and he decided if I could or not. Even months ago, when I had little money of my own, I had to ask him for permission to buy something. What was mine was his, and his was his. But I stayed there because I still loved him and didn't have a place to go. I had too low self-esteem and let myself be stepped on. When I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe that I was to blame for the affair because I didn't want to have sex months after my birth that left me torn and I had to receive stitches. I was already planning my exit and saving money little by little while I was working on selling things from home, since he wouldn't let me work outside because he was very jealous. I wanted to pay for a lawyer. He was having another affair with a friend of his, which luckily kept him busy, and I didn't care anymore that he didn't pay attention to me. I wanted him to stay as far away as possible. I knew that man and he knew me. I could have made a big fuss, but I didn't. I kept quiet, planning my way out, while he and that man slept together in secret. I only felt disgusted by my husband, nothing more. But my husband died in a way I never would have expected. He's now a martyr. When someone dies, all the sins of that person disappear, because that's what even my family thinks. Those who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me are now talking about how good of a man he was, and that we shouldn't insult someone who's dead. Everyone around me talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family talks about what a great man he was, and how he always focused on giving everything to me and our kid. His affair partner hugs me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends told me what a great person he was. Everyone talks about how good he was and how he is now an angel in heaven. And I have to pretend to be sad. The day he died, I cried a lot, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief, as I felt free. It would have taken me too many years to save to pay for lawyers with my little store without him realizing that I was keeping money in secret. He would have kept everything. He would have made my life hell, and I know it because he had told me so every time I stood up for myself. But now I have the house. I have everything. I have the monthly money for being a widow. I have my children totally with me. I've started seeing a psychologist. Everyone thinks that I do it to cope with my grief, but no, it's to overcome the abuse I suffered from him. It was really hard to pretend being sad at the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now everything is over and I'm free. If I made a fuss, my ex-mother-in-law would have done something so that I wouldn't keep anything. They were just like him. But now I'm just a sad widow who needs help in their eyes. The silly widow who didn't know anything, but actually that's helping me to be free and have what I deserve. Sorry for the bad English, by the way. I used a translator for many parts. Also, quick edit on the end. We are not from an Islamic country, and here, same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man like he cheated on me with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. Okay, before we get into the update for this one, let's jump into some comments. Somebody said, I'm just stuck on his affair partner hugging you and telling you he loved you. She had the balls to show at the funeral. Dang, you have more control than I could have ever mustered. Cheers to a life full of fun and love. OP replied, his affair partner was his football teammate and friend. He is a man, but thank you. Somebody else asked, your husband had an affair with a man or another woman? You have a child or children? OP says, his first affair was with a woman, I think. The second with a man, of which I know. Maybe he had others that I don't know. For privacy reasons, I'm not going to reveal the number of children I have, so I'll prefer to leave it as that it's only one. Okay, let's get into the update. This was posted 2 months later on October the 5th, 2024. It's been several weeks since I last posted, and I didn't expect my post to end up in other places. Honestly, I had totally forgotten that I posted here. But a few days ago, the lover and friend of my ex-husband, I've started calling my deceased husband that way. I don't want to be eternally tied to the idea that he is still my husband even after death. Death did me the favor of separating us. Visited my house saying that he found my post. I didn't expect him to find this, and it scared me a bit, but honestly there's nothing I can do about this anymore if someone's posted it elsewhere without asking me first. One of my sons let him in when I hadn't heard the doorbell, so I had no choice but to let him in to not make a drama in front of my kids, and I wanted to know what he was going to say. Once alone, he told me that he knows that I know about him and my husband having an affair because of the post I sent to TikTok. Although I never did any posts on TikTok, that's why I think someone else uploaded it there. He told me that my husband was not the best husband, but he was a great friend to everyone and a very hardworking man. His family misses him so much, and even though he made mistakes in the past, I should let go of it and stop digging into it, because we're all better off like that. He was insisting for a while to such an extent that I actually felt intimidated by him to the point he reminded me of my husband. And it's the first time that I've had that feeling with a man that's not my ex-husband. I can talk peacefully with them, but this situation made me feel on the verge of a panic attack because of his attitude. He's basically scared that I'll say everything. He's gay, and I don't know if he has a boyfriend, but maybe he does, and that's why he doesn't want me to say anything about their affair. I've been a submissive woman for years. My ex-husband turned me into a fearful woman that I wasn't before. He made me the kind of woman who was always going to put her head down, but when he died I felt so happy and liberated, I cried with relief for days. And when this man came into my house to tell me what to do, it was like seeing my ex-husband again, giving me instructions about how to behave and what to do. The man who knows very well that I was in an abusive relationship because he knew how my ex was and chose to sleep with him anyways. The man my husband made me cook for and then screwed him as if I were just a maid at my house, telling me that my ex was a good person and that I should shut my mouth. He was telling me what to do and I just punched his face. To be honest, I wanted to slap him, but for some reason I felt so angry that I hit him, and it felt like I was hitting my husband too. I don't regret it, and it felt good. I yelled at him and told him to leave or I was going to tell everyone what happened. He ended up leaving the house and he's been quiet since that day. My main plan was just to shut my mouth and let go of the past, but that is one thing. And a totally different thing is that this man comes in and wants to impose on me what to do as if I were a doll. Maybe my reaction wasn't the best, but I'm tired of people telling me to shut up. I never managed to say anything to my husband, and that day I felt that I somehow did. I haven't told anyone yet, nor do I think I'm going to, but if he does something, then I won't hesitate twice before this time on whether to make a TikTok or post on Facebook talking about everything. With the issue of the house, with the economic crisis, I'm not sure that anyone can afford what a house like this is worth, but for now I've focused on finally being able to get a better job in the future, to be able to rent a house and be able to rent out this house. That could be a really good way to make more money. My other goal in the future is to buy a small piece of land. No matter how far away it is, I want to have something that is my own and my children's. My children don't miss their father too much, and I understand that. It's taken me a while to get them a child psychologist, but recently they've started going to their sessions and they're doing well. As I said, I also go to a psychologist. I think the best thing I've done is I've started making excuses to my ex-mother-in-law and my own family for not seeing them as often as before, and I've started the stage of cutting off contact little by little, making excuses with work or that we're not at home, although I still have to let my ex-mother-in-law come home from time to time. I think even my kids are happier when they see that my own mood is better. I doubt that many people are interested in this, but thank you for the messages I received. Although many do not understand that cultures and laws are different, and here buying a house or moving to the other side of the country in a month is impossible for many. Okay, so there we go. Before I get into my thoughts on this, just one comment that I've picked out. Somebody said, "The audacity. He thinks you are still the maid," talking about your ex-husband's affair partner. Good for you for showing your strength and sending him on his way. The nerve. I would strongly advise you to coach your children to not allow anyone in that house though, not just for the affair partner if he returns. This includes the family that you plan to distance yourself from. And OP replied, yeah, they know that they shouldn't have opened the door to strangers or do so in the future, but they open the door to people they know because my ex-husband always sent them to open the door for him. I've begun to explain to them that they shouldn't open the door to anyone without telling me first, and now I leave everything with a lock and key. So there we go. I can't imagine it's too regular of an occurrence in life that your husband or your partner would die and you'll feel relief. I mean, listen, maybe it happens more often than I think, but yeah, very, very sad situation no matter what. I mean, even if you are relieved by someone's death, it's still sad that you've got to the stage in your relationship where you are actually relieved that your own husband has passed away. I agree with that final comment though. I mean, like the nerve of your affair partner to come back into your life, knowing what he's done to you, by the way, knowing the pain that he's caused. Obviously, the main blame is with your ex-husband more than it is with any of his affair partners. But for this guy to come back into your life, step through your front door and say, do not tell anyone about this. It's not your right to do so. Also, let go of the past. You're better than that. Also, yeah, if you're actually making dinner, I'll stay. I'll have some food if you don't mind. Again, yeah, agree with the comment. So audacious. I think like the general point here is, and I want to get your thoughts on this in the comments down below, guys. What do you think about this? The whole point that, yeah, OP has said, when someone dies, it is often like they are or have become a martyr. Is that right? If someone was evil in life or was just not a very nice person, do we then have to say, you know, at the funeral or when talking about that individual later on, oh, you know, they were actually such a nice guy. They meant well. They were hardworking. People loved them, when that just isn't true. It is a bit weird. Like, why shouldn't you speak ill of the dead if they deserve it? It's very rare that they do. And even people that you know, perhaps weren't liked by many, they might have been misunderstood or they might not have been terrible people. But when you have people like this, Like, why pretend that they're saints or that they're great people when they're clearly terrible people? Just because someone is no longer with us doesn't mean they can't be insulted, and doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell their family what they did to you. That's my opinion anyway, but yeah, as always, very interested to hear your guys' thoughts down below. My future mother-in-law called me stupid, and now I'm considering calling off the wedding. How do I approach the situation? This was originally posted on June the 29th, 2024. I am a 23-year-old woman, and I'm engaged to John, who is 24. We're together for 5 years. We want to get married in July 2025. I always thought that his family liked me because we get along well. He has 2 older brothers, who are 26 and 29, who are both married. Honestly, I was very excited to have them all as my in-laws. They were always kind to me. Some kind of important information. About a year ago, when I was scrolling on Instagram, I saw a profile that was kind of cringy, but in a cute way. It was an older woman's profile who shared inspirational quotes. I remember one particular post, and it was something along the lines of, "Only stupid people pretend to know everything. Don't pretend, just ask." Honestly, this quote changed me in a lot of ways. Before that, I was always worried that I might embarrass myself if I don't know something. And after reading that quote, I realized that if I always pretend that I know everything, then I'll miss out on actually getting to learn about things. So, I decided to change my habits and start admitting that sometimes I genuinely don't know. Someone is talking about the war in Kosovo? Okay, sure, but first let me ask some questions so I can really understand what we're talking about. And I ask a lot of questions sometimes. I sometimes even open the Notes app and write in some questions that I later want to find the answers to. These are my latest. How does the time work in a black hole? Why some snails have shells and others don't? What food is okay for ducks? How does the light bulb work? The old ones with gas inside them. And does everyone see colours the same? And how can we know that? Alright, sorry for the long introduction, but it was kind of necessary for understanding what kind of person I am. I know that sometimes I might come across as annoying. Now, onto the problem. His parents hosted a small barbecue last weekend only for the family. So it was his mum, who is 54, his dad, who is 59, his 2 brothers, and their wives, who are both 27 years old. I was the last person who showed up because I had to work late. I entered the house, and when I was walking towards the back of the house, into the backyard, I heard John's mum talking about me. To be honest, she wasn't talking about me, more like mocking me. I heard her say in a high-pitched voice, "How does the sun work? Where should I put the fork? Why does nobody like me? How do I wipe my butt?" I just stood there. I had this sinking feeling. I couldn't move, so I just stood there. And I heard them all laughing. One of the wives said, "I actually don't mind her always asking questions. I think it's cute." And it made me feel hopeful that they'll say something like, "Yeah, sure, we're just playing. We love that." But none of them did. Instead, the mum replied, "It's not cute. She's just stupid." After that, they laughed again. And I heard John laughing. My heart kind of broke in that moment because he didn't even say one positive thing. He didn't defend me. He just laughed. I quietly turned around and left the house. I texted John saying that I got sick and have to stay home. Now I'm wondering, how should I approach this situation? We live together, and I'm sleeping in the guest bedroom for now, and I'm using the excuse that I don't want him to get sick from being around me. But I can't ignore him forever, and I can't pretend to be sick anymore. It's been too long. I'm not sure how to proceed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'm considering talking to them about this, but I'm also worried that they won't be honest with me. I can't marry him if he really thinks I'm stupid, but I also can't marry into a family who thinks so little of me. But maybe it was a joke and I shouldn't take it so seriously. I'm so torn apart, and every day I convince myself a bit more that it's okay, and sometimes we should all laugh about ourselves. Now I feel like I'm going crazy. I'd really appreciate some advice. Okay, before we get into my personal thoughts on this one, and then of course on to the first update. Firstly, OP has left some comments down below, a little edit, addressing some people that have said that they really don't like people like OP. She says, "There are many comments saying that they cannot stand people like me. I agree that sometimes I can be a bit too much with the questions, but with that being said, I still think I'm within reason. I don't do it around people I just met. I rarely do it at parties or other gatherings. I usually do it with people who are close to me, who I think won't judge me, or with people who specifically have knowledge about something and are willing to share it. If I'm a part of a conversation, I'm not rude and I'm not interrupting, I usually just ask 1 or 2 questions. If a discussion is about the climate change, I'm not asking about monkeys, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm also not a complete idiot. I don't ask questions which generally would be considered dumb to other people. Those I just write in the notes and check answers later in the internet. I'm capable of reading, so I make good use of it. But after all, I still do ask questions a lot. Okay, first of all, I've got to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions at all. And I ask myself this: who would I rather be in a conversation with? Somebody that's asking maybe a few too many questions, but someone that's asking questions and is, curious about the conversation, admitting they don't know everything in the world, just like every other person ever, or someone who acts like they know everything. And to be honest, sometimes I do catch myself doing this and I'm like, don't do this. It's not good. Someone that is just a bit too stubborn and doesn't like to admit that they don't know something, and instead of asking, isn't really brave enough to do so and just acts as if they know it instead. I would rather be with someone that says, you know what, yeah, that's actually interesting. I didn't know or don't know anything about that. Tell me. Surely that's better. Now, secondly, when we're coming on to OP's family-in-law to be, and particularly your husband to be, that's just not good at all. Even if it is a joke, firstly, you shouldn't be joking relatively maliciously, I'd argue, behind someone's back when they're going to be marrying into your family. And secondly, for your husband not to even give any sort of positive comment at all and just laugh is mental. I completely agree with you. If anything, I actually think it's worse than you're saying. But yeah, that is it for the initial post. Guys, get your comments down below. What do you think right now? 3 days later, though, we got this update. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to people who reached out to answer my questions about black holes, snails, ducks, light bulbs, and other stuff. I'd love to have you as my friends. For the other people who said I should just shut up, I don't really care if you find me annoying or hard to be around. I'm okay with that. I don't exist to please everyone. I'm just here for a good time, have my own interests, and learn. I didn't expect my post to gain so much attention, but I'm so grateful for the advice. Most of you told me to break up with him, and at the very least confront him, so that's what I decided to do. You gave me a push and the confidence to do it. But before I did that, I texted the wife of John's brother, the one who said she liked me asking questions. I asked if we could meet up for coffee. She said, sure. We met, and I didn't see the point in pretending to her that I didn't hear their conversation. So, after some small talk, I just said, I heard you all talking about me during the barbecue. She immediately got sad and said she feels embarrassed. She explained that it wasn't a joke. It wasn't out of context. It was just mean and hurtful. She said she's sorry for not defending me more, but I said that it's okay and I understand. I told her that I don't blame her for anything and just wanted to make sure that I understand the situation and see it for what it really was. And it really was laughing about me behind my back. Just bullying. At this point, I just had to confront John. In my last post, so many comments were saying that he'll probably try gaslighting me. And you were right. We were having dinner together for the first time since the barbecue happened, because before I tried my best to avoid him. Yeah, I know that's not very mature of me, but other than you guys, I don't really have a strong support system. My family and best friends are hundreds of kilometers away. I only have 2 good friends here. I was so stressed, I thought I'm gonna pass out. My legs were shaking and I was terrified because I knew deep down that this is the moment where my 5-year relationship goes down the drain. I looked him in the eyes and I asked, how does the sun work? He looked confused, so I followed with, where should I put my fork? Why does nobody like me? At this point, realization hit him and he started nervously laughing. I said I was there and I heard them. After the initial shock passed, he got mad. He said it's rude to eavesdrop. I said it's rude to bully people. He tried telling me that it was just a joke, that I shouldn't be so uptight, that it really was funny. I said that I didn't find it funny, and I went to the guest to calm down. He started panicking. He was asking me to please talk to him. He was much more apologetic and said that he will be 100% honest with me. I asked if his mother made similar comments before the barbecue. He said yes. I asked him if he ever defended me. He said he tries to, but I don't know if I believe him. He told me he loves me and respects me. I don't know if I believe that either. I said that I love him too, but I need a break. He's all I've ever known. He was my first and only partner. Remember guys, OP is 23. I have no outside perspective of this. I've got no experience. I need a moment to think. I'll be going to my friend's house for a while to think everything through. The apartment has his name on the lease anyway. After I gathered some of my things and left, he kept texting me non-stop. He tried calling, but I didn't respond. I was very hurt because he tried to belittle my feelings, and only later, when he realized that I might break up with him, did he start apologizing. The next day, I decided to give him another chance to explain himself, and I came back to the apartment. He seemed very sad and tired. He said that he told his mother that I overheard them. I said, I don't care. It's his time to step up and show me that he cares. I'm not interested in an apology from his mother. I'm already done with her. I can't put up with this behavior and mocking me like we're in primary school. I saw a comment saying that probably her ego is hurting, and I think that's true. She never got the chance or never had the desire to have an education. She's a very good homemaker, but outside of that, she doesn't have many interests of her own. If I'm asking her about making tomato soup, she'll talk for 30 minutes, lecturing me about adding enough sugar, but not too much. She'll lecture anyone who is willing to listen. But anytime someone is talking about something she's not familiar with, she gets defensive and tries to imply that nobody cares about that, and if it's not relevant to her, it shouldn't be discussed. And again, I go back to my previous point, guys. Who would you rather be in a conversation with? OP, who's happy to learn and is asking you questions, or OP's, well, let's see what happens with her husband-to-be, his mum, who just doesn't want to talk to you about anything that she doesn't know about. Once again, he tried telling me that I should relax because it was only a joke, and at this point, I'd had enough. I took off my ring and told him that his behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. What a line that is, by the way. His behavior is a joke, and I can't be the punchline. Hold that. I told him that I wish him and his family the best, and to look in the mirror to check if they really are as superior as they think they are. I said I'm going to be back with my friends soon to pick up the rest of my stuff, and to not contact me again unless it's about moving my things out. And that's it. I'm done. Thank you all for the advice. Without you, I wouldn't have the confidence to leave this man. I know I deserve better. I can't be with someone who can't stand up for me, and I wouldn't be able to feel comfortable around his family. So I'm done with the relationship. I hope they'll treat his next girlfriend better. Thank you again, Reddit, for the advice. Now, before we get into the final update, posted 3 months after the original, first of all, here are some comments. Somebody said, keep on being curious, not judgmental, which I completely agree with. Now, that is actually a reference, as I'm sure a lot of you know, to Ted Lasso. Same, says OP. I absolutely love that show. I watched it with my ex, and it's funny that he didn't like Ted and thought that his character was not relatable and silly. To be honest, we all should have Ted's strength and positivity sometimes. Yeah, I kind of get that. At times, I would say that Ted could come across as perhaps a little bit overbearing and just annoying because he was so positive. But ultimately, you want somebody like that around you, right? Someone that's going to pick you up when you're down, someone that's always going to see the good side of life. So yeah, I agree with that. Somebody else said, OP, your ex-mother-in-law can still go and get an education, by the way. Many have, and there's still time. That's not an excuse for what she did, and her saying that and acting like that shows how uneducated she is. OP says, I think so too. I believe it's never too late to start learning something new and continue education. In my uni, there was an old lady in her 70s who recently graduated, and everyone was just so proud of her. In my country, university is free, so the barrier to entry isn't as bad as in the US, for example. Okay, so pretty much OP is saying, there's no excuse. Go and learn, you old bint. I'm not sure you can say that, but let's move into the update. So as I said, this was posted on the 28th of September, almost 3 months after the original. It's been some time since I posted the last time, so I thought I'm going to give you guys a small update because some people are still messaging me. I appreciate all the kind words. So, I've got my own apartment now. I lived with my friend for a while and she was an amazing support for me after the breakup, but now I have my own place closer to my university and work. It turns out my ex-fiance didn't tell his family that we broke up. I blocked them all except for the ex himself because we needed to keep in touch in order to get my stuff from the apartment that we shared, and my nice sister-in-law. And a week after the breakup, she texted me and asked when I'll come to the parents' house because everyone wants to apologize. I called her and said that we're no longer together and I don't really want their apology. Now she seemed shocked because my ex was telling them that we're fine, she just needs some time. She told me that the family is still fighting over this whole ordeal and that the brothers are giving my ex a hard time about the situation. I told her nicely that I don't really want any updates. I like her, but I cannot put my energy towards following their every move. She told me she understands. I don't know what happened after that with them. I'm happy. I went on a date with a cute guy I met in a cafe, but I'm taking everything slow and I don't want to rush any relationship. I'm not ready because just 3 months ago I was planning a wedding and right now I'm single and focusing on studying and work. When I graduate, I want to adopt a kitten, and that is my only goal in terms of any big commitment right now. I also enrolled in CS50 by Harvard X, and I recommend you all to try and learn something new today. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask and I'll try to answer in the comments. And boy, some people did have some questions. First of all, somebody said, update us on the kitten, please. I will for sure, says OP. I'm so excited. I wanted to get a cat for so long, but my ex was against it. He didn't like them. He was a dog person. I'm waiting till I graduate because I want to have more free time to actually take care of it. Somebody else asked, may I ask if you already went and picked your stuff up from his place and blocked him for good? I hope so for you to end the chapter more easily. OP says, yeah, I did that after a week and a half. I was completely done picking up my stuff. I tried not to be petty and take my silverware, for example, and not give him a reason to get mad. I didn't want to come alone, so I only went when my friend had the time to help me. He did though get mad when I took my air fryer. He loved it more than anything. I blocked him after I took everything that was mine. And then a comment on her ex's family. I think even though the brothers still think what the family said during the barbecue was funny, they're giving my ex a hard time because he let a good one go or something like that. They don't think they were in the wrong, but they're making fun of him for not standing up for me, and they're laughing at the fact that I broke up with him and he didn't even have the balls to tell them. One of them said that if someone called his wife stupid, he would defend her even if she would have done something dumb. Okay, sorry, there's a lot to unpack there, and I disagree with a lot of the stuff that these people are saying. Firstly, you're laughing at somebody else's wife or wife-to-be, and the fact that her husband-to-be hasn't defended her, yet you're saying that you would defend your wife if somebody else was calling her stupid. So how about just don't call anyone stupid in the first place? That's very, very hypocritical. Secondly, they just don't seem like very good people. Anyway, here is the final comment. Somebody said, it actually seems like you've moved on very easily. From love to engaged and then blocked within a few weeks. Yeah, the love faded really fast. I didn't expect it. The attachment to him is still there, but I very quickly stopped feeling love for him when I fully realized that he sees me as stupid and at the very least, not on his level. So there we go. That is the end of that one. And yeah, all in all, I would say that despite the fact that it was a pretty tough story at times to read, and I feel bad for you, OP, that your husband-to-be's family was just laughing at you behind your back, at least you found out right now. And I think the last point is very, very important, right? You seem to have moved on pretty quickly, which I think shows that ultimately you know now that he wasn't the right man for you in your life. Like, it's not as if you're groveling over him thinking, oh, why did he have to do this behind my back? Why are his family so horrible? No, you've moved on because you've realized that this wasn't going to be the right thing for you anyway. And yeah, of course, the attachment is still there, and I'm sure there is still a lot of love there. But yeah, the fact that you're already going on another date 3 months later when you've been with him for 5 years and we're engaged, it's a pretty good sign, to be fair, as far as a good sign can be when you've just broken up with your fiance. I'm about to ruin my best friend's life, and I don't feel remorse. My soon-to-be ex-friend and I have been friends since middle school. We know everything about each other. Our families are basically one big family now. You get the idea. Like I said, we tell each other everything. Recently, she came to me telling me she's been having an affair for about 4 months with her superior at her new job. She started about a year ago. She told me, not out of guilt, but actually to brag about the dream vacation she's going on with her affair partner, disguised as a work trip. She asked me to cover for her if her husband asked if we'd been in contact because she's planning on going black for that week, so he'd have no way of finding out. Side note, we've both known her husband since high school. They are high school lovers, so they've been together for almost 15 years. Her husband is one of the most honest, hardworking, genuine people I know. He, of course, took everything she said about working late and the business trip at face value because he trusts her more than he trusts himself. I told her I would not be covering for her and to get out of my house because I couldn't even look at her right now. Later, I told my husband everything that happened, and he was just as shocked and disgusted. Her husband is basically his best friend now, so he of course has a lot of loyalty to him as well. My husband pointed out something I didn't even think of. Our security camera. It caught everything. We plan on going to her husband tonight with the proof. It will be up to him to do what he wishes with it, but he deserves to know. Secondly, we're taking this to her job. As far as I know, fraternization of any kind is prohibited at her workplace. She was also promoted once by this same supervisor, so this could be seen as favoritism. Okay, of course. Our guess is that they'll both be fired. Finally, I'm going to send a snippet of her admitting the affair to all of her family, including mine. As I said, our families are very intertwined, so I will easily be able to contact the majority of her family. I'm not going to give her a chance to spin this against me or her husband. Some may think this is harsh, but I wholeheartedly disagree with what she's doing. Okay, so there we go. That is it for the original post. Wow. Things have gotten off to a pretty hectic start, I will say this. Before we move on, there is a little edit straight away that OP added pretty soon after this went live. I decided to take the advice of some of the commenters and leave it up to her soon-to-be ex to decide to go nuclear or not. As some of you pointed out, he may decide to stay with her, and going nuclear would ruin his life in turn. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you took the decision to just tell her entire family, also obviously cost her job, etc., that would have ramifications on him if he does decide to stay with her. The other reason is going nuclear and making her lose her job could affect the outcome of the divorce. We still plan to tell him, but we've decided against the other two options for now. So I'm going to let soon-to-be ex know if she tries to pin this on either of us or tells anyone a single lie, and then I will do a 180 and go nuclear. I will not be seen as a villain for a situation I didn't even ask to be in the first place. She was the one who thought it would be smart to tell her monogamous friend with traditional values that she's cheating on her spouse. She can lie in her bed. OP has then added this small update. First of all, giving names to those involved. Alyssa is best friend. Noah is best friend's husband. OP says, I decided to take the advice of a few people and reach out to Alyssa before I went to her husband. I recorded the conversation and I let her know it was for my safety. She still seemed extremely nonchalant about the whole thing. I told her I was worried for her, as even for her, this was very out of character behavior. Long story short, she's felt very weak and unbalanced in her and Noah's marriage. For context, Noah went to a trade school and makes very good money, while up until her promotion, Alyssa was making slightly more than minimum wage. She's recently been reading up on some anti-traditional values, and the women in those forums attacked her for making less than her husband. She then explained that she noticed her supervisor was trying to flirt with her, and her internet friends told her to run with it and use him to get higher up. She of course did, but admitted she'd become emotionally attached to him as well. All in all, she admitted she doesn't really regret the affair because it, quote, helped with her career and, quote, she found love. I told her she had the option to tell Noah the truth before me, but that my husband and I were coming over tonight with the video of her admitting the affair so she wouldn't be able to sway it in her favor. Again, she very nonchalantly said, okay, and hung up on me. I don't know what the heck is going on. I can't tell if she's having some sort of psychosis or she's literally just so detached from her marriage that she doesn't care what happens. My husband and I still plan on going to Noah tonight, but I'm honestly intrigued to see what she says to him, or if she says anything at all. Okay, so before we get into the update of this one, the first major update, let's first of all jump into some comments. People asked in the comments down below all about OP having the legal rights and consent to send the video evidence to Alyssa's workplace, first of all. OP says, I'm pretty sure we'll be fine legally if we do ever end up sharing it. We've decided against it for now. Also, Alyssa knew that we had cameras in our house. We have a very obvious Ring doorbell as well as outdoor cameras. The indoor ones are obvious as well. Plus, where we live, you have the right to record on your property without consent, so there'd be no ability to retaliate against us. This is the whole reason, though, that I got so upset. She's a new hire with basically no experience in the field, and she got a promotion for the stereotypical banging the boss. She's always been the person to look for loopholes or easier ways to do stuff, sure, but this is a new low. I hope at the very least the supervisor gets fired. Someone like that shouldn't be in a position of power because they obviously can't handle it. I've thought about maybe making an anonymous tip to the company about him specifically, but I don't want it to lead back to my ex-friend, for now. OP on telling Alyssa's husband about the video evidence and then going nuclear. OP says, the only reason I'm against it for now is because of some insightful comments. He's a very good man and he might forgive her or decide to reconcile. Even though I don't agree with it, that would be his decision, and I don't want to, in turn, ruin his life by letting everyone know he stayed with a cheater. Someone also said that affecting her job could affect the outcome of a possible divorce, and I wouldn't want anything to play against him. OP continues, saying, honestly, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he decided to stay with her. He's a very forgiving man and may be willing to give it a shot. As tough as it will be, we do see ourselves going no contact with both of them unless a divorce were to take place. As much as we'd obviously love to continue being friends and support the husband, if ex-friend is part of the deal, we cannot support that. Okay, so that is it for the first post. Now let's jump into the update. This was posted just a couple of days later. I took a lot of people's advice and decided not to go nuclear. As many people said, at the end of the day, it's not my circus. The decision should be left up to the wronged party, and that is Noah. I also decided to reach out to Alyssa before telling Noah and decided to give her a chance to confess to Noah herself. After I talked to her, I was legit thinking about reaching out to her parents about medical help because she was so unbothered and so non-remorseful about the affair that I thought that she must be having some sort of mental break or psychosis. Yeah, she's always been the kind to find loopholes or ways ahead, but cheating on your spouse of almost 2 decades for financial gain? That's not normal. As mentioned in the small update, the whole reason Alyssa started the affair was to get the promotion at work. It evolved into an emotional affair eventually though. She admitted that her new friends from some feminism forums and Facebook groups told her she wasn't as valuable if she was making significantly less than her spouse, something I learned she's been more insecure about than she's been telling people. They also told her that using a man isn't cheating as long as there's no emotional attachment. She's just being a girl boss. She admitted she couldn't separate her feelings from the intimate aspects and started going on regular dates and vacations. And eventually they started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. The affair partner knows she's married, but was told they were on the verge of separation. So my husband and I arrived at Noah and Alyssa's with some booze and some dinner. And by the time we were there, Noah had already gone through a bottle of wine. Surprisingly, Alyssa did confess to Noah about the affair. He told us it was extremely non-apologetic though. She sat him down and told him that she wasn't going on a business trip this week. She was going on a vacation with her boyfriend. Oh my gosh. Imagine being in Noah's shoes and hearing your partner say that. Oh my goodness. Noah, being the clueless and loyal person he is, thought that she meant to say husband and was so excited. He asked if they're going to Italy like they planned for, and Alyssa just stared at him. She repeated, with my boyfriend. It took a few minutes, and then it finally sunk in. He told us it wasn't pretty after that, and said he embarrassingly got on his knees and begged her to fix everything. She yelled for a bit, but then just stonewalled him again. She was already packed to leave, and just left him there, sobbing. She turned off her location, which both Noah and I had as part of her family on the app, and we have no idea where she went. We assume she went to her affair partner's house because if she'd gone home with 2 suitcases, her mother would have reached out to Noah immediately. She sees him as a son. We sat down with Noah and said we had video and audio proof of Alyssa exposing and explaining the affair, and we will send them to him in case he needs them. I explained to him that in a moment of blind rage, I was planning on going scorched earth and telling everyone, but that once I calmed down and looked at this rationally, I realized that wasn't the right thing to do. The only person going full nuclear with her was him, because Alyssa obviously didn't care anymore. As I suspected, the idea of reconciliation is still on his mind, but he doesn't see it happening. In order to reconcile, both parties must admit fault and actually want to. Alyssa clearly doesn't. We've gotten him in contact with a friend of my husband who's agreed to help him pro bono until the divorce shows results. I can tell he's still hesitant about going forward with divorce, but he knows he also can't force Alyssa to stay. As comments have suggested, this is where we bow out. We're obviously going to continue to support Noah, but it's not our situation to handle, it's his. If there are any future updates, I'll of course ask Noah first, but you'll be the second to know. Thanks for being so supportive and helpful. It made me realize that how Noah handles his life and his marriage is his responsibility, not mine. Now, before we jump into some final comments on this one, first of all, OP has addressed some questions from the last post. Firstly, what did Alyssa ever do to you that made you want to go so nuclear? Honestly, nothing in particular. Like I said, for the past few years, our friendship has been for convenience at its best. We've basically been friends because we know each other so well, and we have at least one friend. Alyssa has always had qualities I don't agree with, but who doesn't? I think it was just the whole situation that made my blood boil, especially since Alyssa has always been disgusted by cheaters. She was the kind of person to cut dozens of people out of her life if it meant not supporting someone's infidelity. So for her to make a complete 180 and not even have guilt for it, that just grinds my gears. That's part of the reason I think she's having some sort of mental breakdown. Not only is it hypocritical, it's extremely out of character, even for her. And one final question, are you in love with Noah? No, of course not. Singing someone's praises and trying to portray that they're a genuine and good person doesn't automatically mean you want to sleep with them. Our relationship has been nothing more than platonic for the entire time I've known him, because he loved Alyssa and I loved their happiness. I love my husband and literally only ever saw Noah like a brother. Logic, people. Alright, now let's jump into some of the top comments on this post overall. Somebody says, I hope he, the husband, has some self-respect and dignity and goes through with the divorce. If he decides to inform their employer, tell him to do it after the divorce. Actually, yeah, good advice. OP says, actually though, as much as I love the guy, he basically worships the ground Alyssa walks on. If she came through the door right now and said sorry, even with no remorse behind it, I'm 99% sure he'd pretend like the last 4 months were a fever dream. Somebody else said, you handled this incredibly well, and even though it's a painful situation for all involved, your thoughtful approach will likely help Noah through this difficult time. If there are future updates, I'm sure everyone following the story will be eager to hear how things unfold. I'm wishing the best for Noah, and for you and your husband as you continue to support him. OP says, thank you. Like I said, I made this post and the decision to go nuclear in a fit of blind rage, but then I soon realized I was being irrational. It's not my place to serve Alyssa vigilante justice. In all honesty, if she's not careful, she may out herself at work, and it's their decision what to do with the two of them. Somebody else asked if OP was going to eventually notify Alyssa's workplace, but OP says no. If Noah decides to reconcile, she'll be out of a job, which just adds to the problem that caused the affair in the first place. If she gets fired during the divorce, it could be grounds for alimony she doesn't deserve. And then finally, a question was put to OP on what forum Alyssa got the advice from. Now this is definitely something that I would love to know. OP says, it wasn't a national or creditable group. It was called like Independent Women of Insert State, and it's a bunch of women who give advice and other stuff tailored to laws and jobs in our state. The advice she got was from a group of women she met in that group who had their own personal group chat. She called them her friends, but I guarantee none of them are going to help her pick up her life now that it's ruined. Okay, so there we go. That is it for the story. Now, firstly, before I say anything on any different part of this story, any different member or group of people, obviously, we have to say that you know, the worst person in all of this, without a shadow of a doubt, is the person who cheated. I mean, it's two of them, but yeah, it's the woman who cheated. Obviously, she is the worst part of this whole story. Alyssa, of course. But now that we obviously have got that out of the way, I have to talk more about this like Facebook group or whatever it is, and just how horrible a group like that can be. I don't know if the members of these sort of groups, and you know, I'm not just saying this is just like women talking about relationships. It's kind of every sort of online group where people have some sort of agenda and they're trying to push what they think is right, and it's pretty extreme a lot of the time. Football Twitter, for example, comes to mind. I don't know if you guys know about football Twitter. It's an extremely toxic place. It's probably similar to this in some of the effects that it can have. Obviously in a completely different sort of genre and an age group and demographic. But yeah, I mean, when we're just talking about this group of women, I think that OP summed it up perfectly. Like, these women are not going to care at all what actually happens in the end. They just want, like, you know, to stand up for women, like, you know, make sure that they're strong and independent and pushing feminism on. This isn't feminism. This is just stupidity. Like, what are they doing? They're saying to have an affair, use your boss to get a pay rise, but have an affair on your husband of almost decades. Like, what are you doing? And I do think the main point is that they're probably trying to live like vicariously through women like Alyssa who do what they say, and they're like, yeah, you go girl, power to you. But then you're not going to hear anything from them when it clearly doesn't work out and this happens. Like, if she now messages her friends, they're not replying. They're not. they're going to say, oh, you did so well. You stood up for women, like women power. Where's that got you? It's just like some of the worst advice I've ever seen. I don't know if a lot of them don't just have sort of like trauma, or, you know, they're not happy with their own lives or their own situations, maybe how much money they're earning, and they're just trying to push other women into doing similar sort of things. And again, as I said, this is not just like in groups like this, you know, with women and talking about relationships, etc. And yeah, trying to get women to earn more money in weird ways. This happens all over the internet. It is just strange, is all I'll say. I mean, get in the comments down below if you have an example of a group like this, a Facebook group. I mean, there are loads of them. Just really, really strange groups of like-minded people that just push really, really odd narratives that don't actually help anyone.